Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 816 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Iran's having trouble, and also Russia's having trouble as well. And it's also fundraiser night. It's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and also the news from inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as it is now largely certain that the president, Raisi, is most likely been killed in a helicopter crash, I believe in the Bell 205. We are going to be making sure to cover that a little bit later on in the night. We do believe that the announcement that Raisi is dead will most likely be coming out while the stream is live. It does seem as though, according to all of the information we've been able to get over about the past 12 hours, it does appear that search teams are having absolutely no success in finding an actual crash site. And considering that darkness has now fallen upon Iran, and it's now the next day pretty much, we are assuming that the President Raisi and the foreign minister have both been killed in the helicopter crash. We will, of course, be going through all of the information and news that we have, but before we get into that, we do have to talk about what's been going on in Ukraine, as Ukraine has once again claimed some massive successes, not only on the battlefield in the Kharkiv region, but they were also able to sink a very rare Project 22-800 class missile corvette, or missile ship, inside of Sevastapol harbor with 2 ATACMS missiles. The first time in the war that we know of that ATACMS missiles were used to target and destroy Russian naval vessels. Of course, before we get into that as well, there is so much that I have to get into before we even get into the news. We also have a brand new nonprofit that we are fundraising for tonight on this channel. It is the Sunday night fundraiser, and there is a nonprofit that we have now selected, a brand new one we have never fundraised for before, that is absolutely incredible and will probably be a mainstay on this channel from this point forward. And that is none other than Nova Ukraine. Nova Ukraine.
Nova Ukraine.
Hey, let's get it, baby! And Nova Ukraine is an amazing nonprofit that we just found out about thanks to some of y'all just a little while ago. Nova Ukraine is doing incredible things. They're advocating for U.S. support to Ukraine, a vital thing to continue Ukraine's resilience and ability to keep on fighting the Russians in this war. They also provide a massive amount of medical aid to Ukraine. Not only that, but they also provide solar panels to Ukraine, helping to take off some of the stress on the main power grid in the Ukrainian nation, one of the largest and most primary concerns at the home front right now in the war. They also support educational development in Ukraine, trying to help schools to continue to run in such difficult times of war inside the country. Not only that, they conduct demining. This is the first nonprofit in the history of this channel that conducts actual physical demining efforts inside of Ukraine. This is something that you can only do through United 24, with the link in the description below on this channel. And this is the first nonprofit ever that y'all can actually support that ends up conducting demining operations inside of Ukraine, helping to save loads of lives, both on the front lines, well, near to the front lines, and also way behind the front lines in areas where Russian forces are no longer active at all. We are also able to know that they also save animals in Ukraine with their animal welfare projects, and they also support U.S. refugees, well, Ukrainian refugees living inside of the United States, among many other projects.
They're literally doing it all, basically. They're taking care of the animals, the people. Also, they buy a ton of medical aid, by the way. I went through and examined everything about Nova Ukraine, because we always examine all the charities very carefully before we promote them on the channel. And they're out here buying literally x-ray machines, all the big medical equipment that Ukraine needs, and they're sending it there as well. And they're also sending mules and things like that of food to Ukraine as well. So they're doing a ton of work, and they have a lot of money to work with to help Ukraine. So it's a very promising one. I like this one a lot.
And it is an absolutely incredible nonprofit. And of course, tonight we have a fundraiser goal for Nova Ukraine. It is $3,000. Ed Olson just put in a 500. Oh my God, killing it! Thank you, Ed Olson. Massive shout out to Ed Olson for putting in a 500 on this fundraiser. And if you consider yourself to be a part of this Lee Spring Army, make sure to support this fundraiser tonight if you can, because it is going to be conducting massive amounts of help inside of Ukraine thanks to this amazing nonprofit, Nova Ukraine. moving on from this massive plug for this brand new nonprofit that we're running, and hopefully we will see the Lee Spring Army surge as well beyond the goal here soon, it is time for us to get on into the major breaking news that we've been able to get over the past 24 hours, and that moves us on into the area of the port of Sevastopol, as we were able to hear that a Russian 22-800 has been hit by ATACMS missiles and has sank. It is reported that tonight, the 19th of May, 2024, a missile attack was carried out on a small missile ship, Project 22-800 Cyclone, in the port of Sevastopol. The strike was carried out by 2 ATACMS ballistic missiles. As a result of the strike, 6 servicemen of the Russian Federation were killed and 11 more were injured. The vessel was sunk, meaning that the Ukrainians have now claimed another ship destroyed. The Project 22-800s are brand new in the Russian Navy, with the first of its kind going into service in the year of 2018, meaning that that was only 6 years ago, as Murray Peacock throws in a 200, killing it, and this fundraiser is going mental. We have already hit about $1,800 on the fundraiser, and we are only about 19 minutes into the stream. Unbelievable. But nevertheless, the Russian Federation has lost another valuable ship, and I will actually show you what a Project 22-800 looks like right here. And so let me go and grab this really quickly, and let me go right here. And here we go. This is the Buria, but this is our fill-in for the one that was actually destroyed, which is the Cyclone. They are a certain kind of small missile ship that has been developed by the Russian Navy for modern naval practices, specifically in areas of shallower waters like the Black Sea. These vessels have been produced in somewhat larger numbers, although they're still incredibly rare on the Russian naval roster. There's around 13 of these in service, but, of course, today, the first one ever in history was completely destroyed, which is a first of its kind in this class of vessel, and not only that, the destruction of the ship is once again showing that the Russian Black Sea Fleet, and whatever remains of it in Sevastopol, even if it is a smaller but far rare ship like this, they are not protected at all from Ukrainian attacks. The Ukrainians are showing time and time again that massive attacks can make it through Russian air defense and directly into the harbor areas of the port of Sevastopol, and not only that, really throughout the entire areas of occupied Ukraine and Crimea as well. This is giving us a very strong indicator that the Russian Federation is most likely completely devoid of any practical air defense or air defense forces, and they are most likely going to be at the mercy for the remainder of the war from the Ukrainian missile strikes such as the ATACMS, the Storm Shadow, the Scalp EG, or any long-range drones that would be fired into Russian territory, much like the ones we saw attacking Novorossiysk overnight. And also, that might shock y'all, Novorossiysk was attacked again overnight, but we will be moving over there in just a brief moment. But nevertheless, the loss of a Project 22-800 will most likely significantly affect Russian naval efforts within the area of the Ukrainian coastline, as we do understand that while the Russian Navy has largely been moved to Vostochny Rayon, a small wharf within the area of the Novorossiysk harbor area, this does seem to be the main base of operations for any of the few vessels that are actually conducting direct actions against the Ukrainian maritime, I guess you could say, activities within the area of the northwestern region of the Black Sea. With this area continuously being under threat from Russian vessels, the Ukrainians made it a top priority to knock the Black Sea fleet out earlier on in the war, and it appears that they were entirely successful in doing that, but the few of these ships that are still in Sevastopol are operating there and are continuing to try and interdict Ukrainian maritime efforts as best as possible. But the loss of the 22-800 will most likely ensure that those efforts are now impeded permanently, and also it will once again encourage the Russians to probably move the remainder of the Black Sea Fleet, even if it is involved in limited maritime operations against Ukraine, towards the area of Novorossiysk or even further down the coast. But even still, the Russian Black Sea Fleet is not protected in the port of Novorossiysk either, as we still got footage showing that Ukrainian drones had made it into Novorossiysk port again overnight and were attacking the Russian naval forces that were there and also any port infrastructure that would be vital to the Russian war effort. We were able to see that apparently the fuel tanks may have been hit again, and we can see the footage right there. And I want to put a strong may on that because we don't really know for certain. Of course, we have video evidence, but the Russian government said that no drones hit the fuel silo. So we got to kind of, investigate it a little bit more. But moving on from that and on into our next clip in the area of Vostochny Raion, we also got to see that the Russians attempted to shoot down some Ukrainian drones. It appears that they actually were able to shoot down one at the very beginning of the clip, but beyond that, it seems things are tough for the Russians, even in Novorossiysk port. But here is the clip. And we see
Man, they're screaming and going berserk.
Man,
They're in disbelief.
Man, these guys are sitting there, they're cheering because they knew that the Russian air defense was so garbage. Even if a single drone was shot down, it was a miracle. So they're like, yeah, because there's only one shot. And look at this. Also, by the way, a huge shout out to all the civilians on the western side of Novorossiysk, which ended up catching hundreds of pounds of lead. As you can clearly see, all of the tracer fire is already starting to drop downwards and into that area of the city. Take a look, watch the clip. Look, you can already see it's dropping and it's starting to go right into the high rises. So a whole bunch of people in Novorossiysk may have ended up getting filled with lead by their own people. So interesting to see. And also, Matt JKF said, what is their backstop? The backstop is the Russian citizens. That appears to be what the backstop was. But hey, they took down a drone, so it doesn't matter how many Russian citizens died. It just matters that the Russian army shot down a drone. That's all that matters at the end of this day. But look at that.
Man, that's crazy. Also, by the way, Enforcer, we got a piece of breaking news real quick. I don't want to interrupt your Ukraine news, but the wreckage, the site of the helicopter crash of the Iranian president has been found, and we just got a photo of it, and it's looking pretty damn bad. It's a pretty bad wreckage if you want to take a look on our Twitter page.
Let's see here. It's on our profile, right?
Yes.
Let's see here. Looking. Oh, yeah, they're all dead.
This is not what the Iranians wanted to see. Like, these people are probably goners, like, for a long time at this point.
Dude, I haven't seen a crash this bad since Kobe. I mean, that is a pretty bad one. It looks like the helicopter practically ceased to exist. That's what... We knew this earlier in the day, by the way. We are going to get down to that segment right after we talk about Novorossiysk, because now we know he is dead. Like, clearly, the man's dead. But one thing that's very interesting... You know what? We're actually just going to move straight into that news segment right here, right now. So let me copy this link so that way I can show this to all of y'all on air here in a second. But y'all might as well count it as being official. The president of Iran, Raisi, is now dead. And I'll be showing y'all the helicopter crash site here in a second. But I also want to bring you through everything that happened leading up to this today, with us now clearly seeing that Raisi is dead. But let me put this right here, helicopter found, and let me put that down on the map so that way all of y'all who are clicking on the link in the description below can see the entire sequence of events. It starts up here and it moves all the way down to this marker in sequence as to how it happened today. But with that, it is time for me to break the breaking news to all of y'all. The Iranian president, Raisi, is dead, as well as the foreign minister. It is quite clear at this point. There is no other way that could have gone. They are now dead. We are going to be moving out of the port of Novorossiysk. I want to show y'all, actually talk about that. The port of Novorossiysk being hit again is once again showing that Russian forces are completely devoid of air defense, and they are beginning to be targeted in heavy amounts and are being largely unsuccessful in stopping Ukrainian efforts on moving into the airspace. But moving out of the port of Novorossiysk, it is now time for me to bring y'all down to Iran, and to be quite honest, I feel like we should change the title of the stream, Matthew, to President of Iran Dead, or something along those lines.
It wouldn't be that far-fetched to go ahead and say that. I mean, it is a little bit premature, I will admit, because we haven't gotten official confirmation. But the fact it's been about 12 hours since that helicopter crashed, and now we've seen a photo of the wreckage, which looks horrific. Even the rescuers are saying this is terrible, like the way this looks in this crash. These guys, if they were even alive when it hit, which I really doubted based on that picture right there, they've definitely not survived probably the 12 hours it's taken to find the wreckage. So kind of wild it took this long as well. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, the president of a country, Iran, was literally out in the woods for 12 hours and they couldn't spot him. It's kind of wild.
So I've changed the title now, and I will show y'all. You know what? I'm going to skip forward really quickly and show y'all why I'm going to say that he's dead. Here is the picture of the helicopter that was found.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That is the splatter right there on the side of the mountain, which clearly shows that he's dead. I'll explain really quickly. When a helicopter hits at high speed, considering that this is a I believe, and let me make sure to pull this up, a Bell 205. I believe that's the civilian version of the Huey, and it is, and that's what we know he was in. I believe it was a little bit more of a souped-up Bell 205 because it had a twin engine setup, kind of like a twin Huey. But beyond that, with a Bell 205 with a cruising speed of approximately 140 miles per hour, hitting the literal cliff's edge of a mountain with low visibility, that is clearly going to indicate to us that the president of Iran is dead. There is no way that you could survive a helicopter impacting the side of a mountain at that kind of speed. And also looking at the wreckage right there, the center part of the fuselage where the president would have been appears to have been completely destroyed. This means that he is most likely dead if he even survived at all, which would be quite a miraculous survival of a crash like this. He would have already been dead due to the injuries that he suffered. So it is quite clear at this point that they're dead. The president of Iran is dead, as well as the foreign minister. I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, that isn't official yet. No one came out and said that. But listen, y'all, I don't have to have an official statement for this one. You can clearly see that they got plastered onto the side of a mountain like shit sticking to a fridge. So they're clearly dead at this point, and I think that we don't really have to make sure or double check for official verification on that one. I don't even think Kobe's helicopter crash was this bad, and Kobe was literally torn limb from limb, according to the autopsy. So I'd assume that the president here, President Raisi, may have literally been turned into red paste, from what I had assumed. But anyways,
you know something odd as well is I believe there were 3 helicopters in the convoy that was carrying the president right here, and obviously the helicopter, the Bell that crashed that we see in the picture, that is the one that was carrying the foreign minister, I believe, and also the president, and that's the only one that crashed. So I'm not trying to start a conspiracy theory or anything like that, but it's kind of odd that out of all the helicopters, the ones carrying the most important people were the ones that crashed. Kind of weird. And also they flew through some very thick fog and bad weather conditions as well. Pretty stupid to do that in a helicopter. So just all the way around, it's kind of, we need more information, really. That's what we need.
Also, really quickly, I'd like to show y'all at least the closest, let me see here, civilian Hueys. Let me see here if I can find us the exact model that he was flying in, because it was some kind, I believe it may have just been a Bell UH-1Y that was converted for Iranian government use. But I will show you all the closest example that we have to the helicopter that the president of Iran was inside of. And we can actually see an Iranian police Bell 205 right here, which is probably the closest fill-in that we can have. This was the helicopter that the President Raisi and the foreign minister were in when the crash occurred. To put this quite mildly, helicopters have a very fragile frame. And not only that, a lot of the weight in a helicopter is actually above the crew compartment, or really the passenger compartment, inside of these engines and the rotor blades. Considering that this clearly ran into the side of the mountain. We can see that it's a pretty sharp elevation right there. The helicopter ran into the mountain point blank. I mean, it ran into it head on, because we can see here as well, the debris field isn't scattered as though it hit it flying along the mountain. It looks as though the helicopter actually hit flying directly into the mountain itself. So going off of that, we know that the helicopter will hit directly, and that also means that this helicopter most likely telescoped in on itself, meaning that the cockpit got squished into the actual passenger compartment right back here. The engine probably also crushed anyone who was inside of the compartment, and then seeing that there's a large black char where the wreckage is, that is also showing us that a fire broke out from the aviation fuel inside the helicopter, which would probably burn anyone that was left alive to death once the crash occurred. Not only that, the wreckage was probably mangled enough, or the folks inside were mangled enough, that they probably could not escape the roaring inferno that the helicopter then turned into, meaning overall the guy's dead, and the foreign minister is dead as well. So with that, I hope that kind of addresses that fairly well, because it is very clear that the president of Iran is going to be declared dead probably here in the next 20 to 30 minutes. So we are going to get it out there before anyone else gets it out there. If it's wrong, we'll correct the title. But for now, it does clearly seem, based off of that wreck, that he is dead. But let's rewind and go over everything that happened that led to the death of the president of Iran, as well as the foreign minister, just today. Actually, if we were...
we had the goal!
No way! No freaking way!
Jaga,
Oh
Igor.
my goodness! We hit the goal in 30 minutes!
While we were talking away, the goal was smashed. Very nice.
Man, the Leaf Spring Army freaking killed it. You only hit $3,000 in 30 minutes. That is insane. That is actually pretty fast. And I gotta say, huge shout out to every single one of y'all for supporting a brand new fundraiser. We didn't know how this one would go because we've never run new fundraisers in a very long time on this channel. But I love to know that y'all are supporting Nova for Ukraine. I'm honestly wildly impressed with what Nova for Ukraine does. And not only that, I love to know that the Lee Spring Army backed them up and gave them the lock-in shot to make sure that it would get over that fundraiser goal, and we would be able to support Nova Ukraine and help them out in the war effort to help to focus Ukraine's efforts more so on the front line. But still, massive shout out to everyone. And of course, the fundraiser isn't over. If y'all still want to support, y'all can. No problem about it at all. And I hope that we are able to get even higher than $3,000. I hope we get up to $5,000 or something like that. But beyond that, beyond the massive shout out, and we will be covering that a little bit more later on, we do have to talk about this little breaking story right here that all of y'all are seeing right here in front of us. That is the splatter of the Bell 205 that hit the side of the mountain that led to the death of the president of Iran as well as the foreign minister. And, you know, of course, we don't have official verification on that yet. I want to make that quite clear, but I think we can all use a little bit of common sense here to say that guy is clearly dead. So, let's back up all the way to about 12 hours ago when the first bit of news came out that the helicopter had gone missing. We heard that the Iranian helicopter carrying the president had apparently crashed. It went down in northwestern Iran inside of heavy fog weather conditions in a very mountainous region. It also had the president and the foreign minister on board. The rescue teams were already trying to reach the site by 10:24, and there was no word on the president's condition at that moment. Then, after that, we got to see that there was footage that had been made literally just before this crash. From that, we actually got to see the helicopter that they were on before the crash, and we were also able to see what they were doing in northwestern Iran that led to them getting involved in this crash. And so, here is the clip. We see the president of Iran right there. You see them flying over northwestern Iran. And there's the helicopter right there. It is clearly a, I believe, a Bell 205. Yes, it is a Bell 205, but it has a twin-engine configuration, so sadly I cannot say what specific variant of the Bell 205 it is, but nevertheless, it is a very old helicopter. Bell 205s, which are what we call in America the Bell Huey, are so old that they were the primary utility helicopter of the U.S. Army in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, with its first use in large form being during the Battle of Ai Drang in 1965. These helicopters are about as old as the concept of helicopters, and so to see the president of Iran flying around in one of these, and this is their premier helicopter. Also, thank you, Project Serpo, is apparently a Bell 212. And let me go and type that in really quickly so that way we can look at that. And you are absolutely on the money. It is a Bell 212. And let me see here if I can get y'all a look at a Bell 212, a good look at a Bell 212. This is the helicopter. Oh, wait, hang on. Let me close down this video so that way we can show y'all the helicopter in higher definition. This is the kind of helicopter that the president of Iran was on board when the crash occurred. It was a Bell 212, not a Bell 205. So this was the helicopter he was on board. We can see it flying into the area. They filmed that. And then they showed the president of Iran being toured around a facility in the area and being told what was going on. That video freeze right here is actually a part of the video. That's how bad Iranian video quality is.
از آذربایجان شروع میشه در مرز کلاله و بعد از اون به موازات مرز جمهوری ارمنستان ادامه پیدا میکنه و در جمهوری نخجوان خارج میشه. مسیری که آن را
We now see them showing the area. We see the foreign minister right here.
So that's the foreign minister that was on the helicopter with the president right here?
From what I understand, he is. I think this is the guy.
You know, what's weird is, like, when the helicopter went down, everybody was focused on the president. This guy also got killed with him, but nobody's really mentioned this guy.
Yeah.
He's kind of like went out into oblivion.
Dude, he turned into a meme. I saw everyone on Twitter starting to mention, dude, it must suck to be that guy because no one's even concerned if you're dead or not. Like, everyone's just completely ignored him. But beyond that, he was one of the, like, right now we're looking at ghosts. This guy was in the crash, and the president of Iran, right here, was also in the crash as well. So both of those guys, you're looking at them in the past tense now. Our RIP t-shirts are about to come out about these guys. But moving on from that and into our next little bit of news about the crash, we were able to see that some news crews were able to get near to the area where the search teams were operating, and we were able to see the unbelievable fog cover that existed in this area right when the crash happened. Here's the clip. That is from what we understand, some kind of a police van right there, which is maybe a few dozen meters away from the cameraman, and it's completely invisible for the large part. It's almost enveloped by the fog. Now think about this. A Iranian helicopter carrying the president of Iran, with really no modern guidance systems or GPS systems to speak of in the helicopter, flew through fog this thick in a mountainous region at low altitude. Think about that kind of stupidity that your average Iranian helicopter pilot or the average Iranian entourage for the president has to be to deem that a safe and good decision to make to fly the president pretty much into certain death in these kinds of weather conditions. Without any kind of modern navigational instruments to guide the helicopter through the area, or at least give them an idea of what would be around them, this was begging for the president of Iran to be killed. And we can see them continuing to show the fog.
You know, I've been hearing, I just want to put this out there real quick. I've been hearing the Iranians try to blame the Israelis. They've been saying some guy called Helicopter or something like that might have been behind the attack, but I'm not sure.
I have heard that, and we would like to say that there is an alleged rumor that an Eli copter has apparently been out there and has assassinated the president of Iran, but we are still trying to look into that claim and make sure that it is serious. But we can still see the heavy fog cover here.
And Catherine F. said, I guess the other two copters were lucky. And they really were. They were lucky because even though they made it through clearly, like trying to get through this fog in a helicopter with basically no visibility, that is just insane. And they were apparently flying pretty low toward the ground as well, at a very low altitude to be able to hit the mountain like that. I assume for security reasons, but they actually ended up causing a disaster trying to fly low and avoid anybody getting a target lock on them. I assume that's why they were flying low, but nonetheless, a series of bad decisions led to that whole accident.
And also, I saw Candido Torres in the chat say, what am I looking at? That's exactly the point. What are you looking at? Like, you can't tell the fog cover is that thick. You can't even see what you're really looking at all. But moving on from this clip showing the extreme fog cover in the area, we then got to see that search teams started to arrive in incredibly large numbers to the area. We were able to see the lights of their vehicles through the fog. Also, let me mute that. But we can see the light of their vehicles through the fog. And I'd also like to let y'all know that a large part of this search and rescue effort was conducted by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which would lead us to assume that we are about to see the highest level of competency and efficiency in the search and rescue effort. Spoiler alert, it was the most disorganized and most clown-level Ringling Brothers circus act of a search and rescue that has ever been seen in modern history, but we are going to get through all that and show y'all each and every bit as it went down.
Also, by the way, we got some more breaking news here. It looks like an Iranian search and rescue team is now using a drone to go in. I'm not sure really why they're not walking up on the crash, but they have the drone flying over, and they say there seems to be no signs of life, which is pretty much expected based on the severity of the crash. And also, I was trying to see here, I think we have maybe a more up-close photo of the crash from a drone. And it does look like that thing is pretty much smashed on the ground. Like, there's no way anyone could have survived that. So if there's anyone still left, I would be absolutely blown away.
So really quickly, we will move this over on screen just to make sure we keep y'all up to date with what is actually coming out on the ground at the moment. We'll get back to the whole story leading up to now, but it is quite clear, folks. I mean, like, it still has not come out yet. The president and the foreign minister are dead. We're just waiting for that at this point. But here's the clip of them using the drone.
سرده بدن سرده
حرارت نداره؟
نه
هیچ کدوم حرارت نداره
نه سوخته متی ببین این ملخ اینجاست کابین سوخته کامل کابین سوخته
Also, unfortunately, we do have some footage here on Twitter on our profile now that actually shows the footage itself instead of just the guy fondling with the controller right there.
he's fondling it. That's for sure. But let's see here. We got some additional footage. Let's see here. Is it the first two that we have up on screen at the moment?
Yeah, no, that's one of them.
My God. That was almost like a 70-degree incline that thing hit. I mean, everyone is dead. There's no way at all anyone survived that. Because look at from this angle. Because these mountains are incredibly steep.
They flew straight into it. Like that has to be what happened.
I mean, they literally flew head on into that mountain. And I will bet you, based off of how straight on that impact was, that they were probably going top speed around 130 to 140 miles per hour when they hit that mountain, and that means that everyone on board has been killed. They pretty much got an instant cremation, to be quite honest, so that will save the Iranian government a little bit of money. But beyond that, let's see, was that the best footage that we had, Matthew, or do we have footage that shows it in a higher quality?
So it looks like there's two versions of the same video running around. Basically, the one right there with the ISNA logo on it, there's a similar one. It's the same video. I was trying to see here. I think there's one new photo that we haven't seen before, and it should be on our profile as well from FlyTux News.
And let's see here if we can get that up here on screen.
Also, some audio is playing in the background as well.
I'm not hearing that.
Could be on my end. Let me check.
We've been having some
Yeah,
huge
it's on my
audio
end.
issues tonight. Yeah, sorry. But we've been having some massive audio issues tonight, folks. Sorry about that. But beyond that, sadly, Matthew, I'm not seeing it. Is it on our likes tab or something like that?
No, it's on our main page. It should be. Take another look and try refreshing.
Let's see here. I'm going to refresh it again. Hopefully, we'll see it this time. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, they're dead. That's it. I think this is like the Michael Jackson update that has been going on Twitter for I think 8 years. It's like update, he's still dead. Update, these guys are certainly dead. There's no way in hell that these guys survived. And my God, that is crazy, man. And when you see the actual video that they took from those guys on the other mountain, that mountain is a sheer rock face. I mean, it is a practical 60 to 70 degree incline going all the way up. And this helicopter hit it dead on. So just wanting to make this quite clear, everyone, the official announcement that he's dead isn't out yet, but he is dead. I don't need the official announcement to see with my eyes. A crash like that, you do not survive. You never survive that, and they're all dead. So with that, I hope that...
Also, if you want to see some footage of the actual conditions on the ground, which were obviously pretty bad, we do have some footage that just came in on the top showing the vehicles trying to get to the crash site, which it appears, based on what I'm seeing, it looks muddy and wet.
And by the way, y'all, this is actually way later after the crash when this was filmed, because this is in daylight. The search and rescue effort began near to late dawn when the crash initially happened. Then the entire nighttime has passed, and now it's starting to turn daylight again in Iran. And this is when that film was made. So this is fairly recent footage, and even then, the fog cover is still incredibly strong over this area. But that's the end of the clip right there. Let's see. With that, that's the end of the footage. But we're going to be trying to see if we can get any additional information about the president of Iran and his death as it keeps on going. But moving on from that and into the rest of the sequence of events from earlier in the day leading up to the announcement of his death, which will be coming around very soon, probably within, I would say, 30 minutes to an hour here while we're on air. We then got to hear that as soon as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps got in the area and a whole bunch of other units, including the Red Crescent, they began to conduct search and rescue efforts into the area where the helicopter had possibly crashed. And then it immediately came out that search and rescue teams were now being reported missing as well, as they disappeared into the fog and had absolutely no way to communicate with anyone else. Meaning that the situation only got more complicated, as now there are less search and rescue efforts being conducted, as some of the search and rescuers are trying to search and rescue for themselves. I guess that was more of a self-seeking, self-finding mission that those guys went on. But beyond that, the chaos then only got worse, as we heard that the Iranians moved cell phone reception boosters into the area to try and reach the missing search and rescue efforts, and also to try and reach the crash site and see if anyone was alive there and trying to use their flip phones. It appears that no results came out of this. It still sounds as though the search and rescue teams that went missing are still missing and have not been found, and there was never any communications made from the crash site to Iranian authorities letting them know that anyone had survived that crash at all. But not long after the cell phone reception booster statement had been put out, that those had been moved into the area, we then heard that there was still no trace of the helicopter in the search and rescue efforts. Not long after that, we then heard that a deputy of the president said one of the stupidest things that is clearly untrue now. He said that multiple times after the crash, there was contact with two of the people who were in the helicopter, and it seemed that it wasn't a serious accident. I'm doubting that. I'll be quite honest with you all. I'm doubting that his statement was accurate. Looking at that picture, I think that either he was contacting the spirits of the damned, that was with a seance, or he was talking to some random folks in the middle of the woods who had a radio. One or the other, because there is no one who came out of that crash. But beyond that, that was the statement made by the executive deputy of the president. And by the way, I just wanted y'all to keep in mind, at this point, search teams were missing. Fog cover was still extreme. The Iranians had no real high-tech way to even try and find the president, so it was really just people wandering around on the ground until they found something. And not only that, they had moved cell phone reception boosters into the area to try and at least organize some sort of communication after the plan was already being executed to try and find the president. So at this moment, when the deputy of the president said that, chaos had already completely ensued. Then moving on from that, we heard that rescue teams had made it to the crash site, an absolute miracle from God, according to Iranian media, and then literally 3 minutes later, the Iranian search and rescue groups on the ground said that the helicopter's crash site had not been found, and every single Iranian news source was lying, and they were still looking for the crash site as of 1:23 p.m. local time here on this channel. Then, not long after that, we also got to hear that the crash site had been spotted by a Turkish drone, which we were able to see this right here. And you can also see this appears to be a splat. This does not appear to be a helicopter that survived a crash. Already in the infrared footage from this Turkish drone, because the Iranians actually begged foreign countries for help trying to find their president, we can clearly see that this helicopter had already splattered by the time that this infrared camera had made it here. It also appears that when this drone was flying over, there was clearly a fire that was enveloping the fuselage of the helicopter, and it doesn't appear that we see any infrared signatures of anyone alive near the crash site. Absolutely nothing.
So this was confirmed to be the actual thermal footage from the actual crash site, because earlier I saw the Iranians tried to deny that this was the actual site itself, and they said this was simply something else. But is this actually it?
This is actually it, because you can see the exact same mountain face that this fire is on. You can see that this is a lower elevation area here, and towards the top right of the screen, there's a higher level of elevation compared to the bottom left, which is clearly showing that this Turkish drone is flying over the mountain where the president of Iran's helicopter was. And it's also showing in this clip that the helicopter didn't just crash, it impacted the side of the mountain and apparently set fire to its own fuel source, which means that the fuselage was then burning. And that was then backed up later by the picture we actually got in color, which shows that the crash site has been heavily charred by fires that were caused from the helicopter crash. We see right there's also the fireball as well from the crash site. And also, by the way, Larry Hirschman in the chat said, bold of you to assume their thermal imaging works. Huh, that's the funny thing. They actually didn't have any thermal imaging in Iran, apparently, because they actually requested that the Turkish government sends in infrared drones, well, drones equipped with infrared cameras, so that way they could help look for the president of Iran. And what we're looking at right now in this video is actually the camera from a Turkish drone that was flying in the area of northwestern Iran, also trying to look for the president of Iran. So, funnily enough, we don't have to joke about Iranian thermal cameras not working. They don't. That's why they had to call in the Turks to help out.
And unfortunately, we got some breaking news.
And what is that breaking news?
So we're hearing from the authorities and also from the rescuers themselves here. Let me go get to the actual statement here. We're being told that search and rescue teams are stating that all passengers on board, including the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and also the foreign minister, have died. So it appears to be confirmed now that their remains have been discovered amongst the wreckage, and they have died as of right now. So apparently, we're not being told if they died on impact, but they may have survived for a short while and then died sometime within the 12-hour period. But everyone's pretty much in agreement that they are dead.
And so we now have official confirmation about 20 minutes after we broke the story that the Iranian president is certainly dead. He is now 100% dead. But we will make sure to show you all the rest of what went down leading up to his death. But I do want to make this incredibly clear. Wake up your wife and kids if you don't like Iran, because the president of Iran and the foreign minister just got killed in a helicopter crash, and we were able to just get the official confirmation of that here live on stream. And so we're going to continue to show you all this clip move through the sequence of events, but we're now going to start talking about afterwards the I guess you could say chain of command inside the Iranian government and what will most likely be happening next. We're already seeing that the Iranian central government is highly concerned of an uprising or a coup d'etat against the central government because of the possible death of the president, now confirmed death of the president, and so we will be trying to look into what is happening with that here soon. But I will I will greatly suppose that there will probably be major breaking news coming out of Iran for the next several days, if what we're seeing ends up being correct on the ground. And with that, that is the end of that clip right there, but we're now going to be moving on from that clip and on into our next one, where we were able to hear that the rescue teams would be out there soon near to the crash site, and they would be able to find the president and save his life. But alas, there was no lives to be saved, as we just got news just a very short moment ago, about 2 to 3 minutes ago, that he is dead, 100%. They stated, the Iranian state media has now stated that the president, Raisi, is dead, and we will be putting that down here. And so, Iranian president, dead. And boom, right there we go. And we'll put that up right there, and that is the end of this entire story. Over the course of the day, the Iranian president is dead, 100%. We were able to get the confirmation of that right here, right now, and we now know that things are going to be getting very interesting inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, as we also got to see that as soon as it was possibly true that the president may be dead, we started to see that major amounts of security forces were being moved into Tehran to try and secure government buildings and stop any possible coup d'etats from occurring. And we can see all of these quote-unquote security guys here, but honestly, they kind of look like the Fedayeen. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that more forces were being moved into the streets throughout all of Iran. We also got to hear about the random death of an Iranian police officer who got shot inside of a larger city in Iran, but, you know, we don't really know enough about that to even talk about it. But we can see here more forces in the streets.
Also, by the way, about that police officer, once again, we don't have too much information about it, so take this with a grain of salt. But I've been hearing rumors that police officer might have been the chief of police. But that's just a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's possible.
It's possible he may have been the chief of the police, but who knows? But beyond that, we also got to see that some folks decided to celebrate the death of the president with fireworks.
رئیس جمهور فقید کشورمون رو تبریک میگم به کل مردم ایران. امیدوارم که باقیه‌شون هم همینجوری سر به نیست بشن. امروز 30 اردیبهشت ماه 1403.
Get some WD-40 for those brakes, man.
Man, that's what it sounds like when your helicopter's about to hit that mountain. You got to put on them brakes. You go... then you just hit it anyways. But beyond that, we are living in a post-Ricey world right now. I sound a little bit optimistic about this, and I sound kind of a little gleeful, and I'll be entirely honest with you, I kind of am, and I'll explain. This guy is an enemy of the United States. Iran is an enemy of the United States and an enemy of the Western world. And considering that this is a pro-Western channel, and the incompetence of an enemy of the United States ended up leading to the death of their leader of the nation, I find this to be a pretty good thing overall. On top of that, the Iranians, through the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, support every single terrorist faction that practically exists at this point in the region, including Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis inside of Yemen, and the guy who was pretty much at the helm of this thing just ended up dying. So, I gotta say, not bad at all, and great to hear that this was something that ended up going down today. This is history in the making. A leader of a nation died in an accidental helicopter crash. You don't hear these kinds of things often, and we don't know what will be happening next in Iran, but a lot could happen. We do know that there is a high possibility, considering the fragility of the government, that there may be a coup d'etat or multiple different factions vying for power, which may start to split Iran apart. And a lot of people have been talking about this and wondering, if the Iranian president is dead, and he is, do you think that Iran will devolve into chaos? Will the transfer of power be peaceful, or will it go into an absolute civil war, or some kind of a Game of Thrones like situation with everyone vying for power in the region? And so, Matthew, what are folks saying, and what are you thinking about that?
So it looks like about 38% of the people say yes, someone will try to seize power. 36% said no, the transfer will be peaceful, if that's even possible. 13% said, it seems likely but need more info. And on this one, I think personally, I have a gut feeling that something odd is going to happen that's going to prevent the transfer of peaceful power. If that's even possible, like I said, in Iran, that would be somewhat of a shocker. But I think someone's going to try to step in here and do something. And that's why we've seen so many security forces get deployed around government buildings in Tehran, is because the government there knows that there are people vying to take control of Iran, and that could cause something to pop off now that a very good ally of the Ayatollah is now dead. So I'm personally with the 38%, but Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I'm with the 38%. Someone is going to try and seize power, and we also have to remember that while the Ayatollah is the supreme leader of Iran, there is still a massive government apparatus that is run by the president of Iran and everyone below him. The supreme leader is just kind of like this permanent figure on top of that guy. So going off of that, I would say that there's probably going to be a lot of people vying for power. And hell, we may even see that some people are vying to overthrow the Ayatollah. I mean, he's in a very weak position at the moment, considering that he's not the one that's able to appoint the successor. Things have are already going to be going out of control just because there is no kind of a peaceful process that has already been laid out for the change in between in between presidents. And so I would have to assume that this will most likely devolve into some kind of a really chaotic situation, or the transfer will be very peaceful and we will be flabbergasted at the peacefulness of the power transfer. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if any other Iranian presidents, let's see, has any Iranian president died in office? And so let's see if we can get an answer of that. Let's see. It doesn't appear that any other Iranian president has ever died while in office. So this is the first time in Iranian history, well, the Islamic Republic of Iran's history, that anything like this has happened. So we're going to be seeing if a coup d'etat does happen, because I would assume that under these kind of conditions, considering that's the first time ever in the nation's history something like this has happened, I would assume that this probably will lead to some kind of a coup d'etat or some kind of chaos as people vie for power or struggle to get to the top. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it is time for us to move on out of Iran and from that major breaking news that is really unbelievable to even think about. And it's now time for us to move on up into the area of Ukraine, because we were able to get more major breaking news out of the Ukraine war today and everything that's been going on up here. But moving on into the area of Kharkiv. We were able to see that over the past 24 hours, Russian forces have made minor gains in the area on the western side of the offensive, and they've also been able to finally move down into the forest near to Bupravodka along the Severeskidnets River. This is a very minor advance. There's really no potential here because they still have to have a bridge or some kind of a bridge works to be able to cross the river, so unless if they have that, this is pretty much a non sequitur advance, and they really had technically already taken that about 2 days ago, right when the front line looked like this. They had practically already taken that area, so now it's just updated to show that. It appears that there was a small Russian border incursion near Zelene, and beyond that, we also saw that Russian forces appear to be trying to move through the area of Lukyantsy and Hloboke behind the Ukrainian defensive lines in those villages. We don't really know if that will end up being successful in uprooting the Ukrainians from Hloboke. To be quite honest, I think it might, and the Ukrainians may end up withdrawing to Lipsy and then trying to hold the area from there. But nevertheless, this is giving us a pretty good indicator that once again, Russian forces have been heavily slowed in this offensive, and it doesn't appear that they're going to be making any of the progress that they have been making in the past. We were also able to get a decent amount of video clips showing that a 85mm D44 was being used in the area. I just want y'all to keep in mind that the D44 is a very old artillery piece. I mean, it is incredibly old. This thing is from, I believe, World War II. And actually, no, it's just right after World War II. It started production in 1946. So this thing is ancient. So very interesting to see the Ukrainians using one of these things. But nevertheless, here's the clip.
Dang, James Hughes just threw in a $200 donation.
Dang!
Did you see that?
Oh
Damn.
my lord, I didn't see that. I just looked over there. I was like, oh my god. Dang.
Thank you, James.
We just got up to $3.7 thousand. Actually, almost 3.8. Unbelievable. And we can also see now that the artillery piece is ready to fire again. And that's the end of that clip, but showing an older artillery piece at work in the area. Meanwhile, we also got to see an Mi-24 firing off its rockets right here. This footage was pretty whack, because we got to see the rockets literally fly right by the drone. In fact, they were so close, they ended up shaking the drone a little bit. So, here's the clip. We see the Mi-24 tilt up, fire off its rockets, and they fly right past the drone right there. And we can now see the helicopter firing off its flares, and whipping back around to get away from the front line area.
Let's see. I see the news of the president of Iran has hit the mainstream, it looks like, and people are starting to finally pick up on it. So now that this is spreading around, now's the time to start watching to see what's going to happen in Iran, because this could be the green light for whoever's been sitting around waiting for this to happen.
And it could certainly be. And also, I just realized that I never put Ukraine/Iran war news with the enforcer up in the top, so now we put that up there. But moving on from that little bit of an update right there, and it's great to hear that we're always way ahead of the mainstream news organizations. We get the story out before them at least by 30 minutes every single time, which is massive. It's a behemoth difference in between us and the mainstream news, because now all of them are going to be getting that out, and we've had that out for, hell, quite some time at this point, 30 minutes at a bare minimum. So unfortunate to hear that the mainstream news once again just simply can't compete. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into the area around Vovchansk, where we got to see that Russian prisoners were captured by the Kraken unit today in this area.
98-й. Привет нашему взводному зачету. Мы в плену у Кракена.
And they're having fun. And moving on from that clip and into the next one, we also got to see the Freedom of Russia Legion fighting in Vovchansk as well. We're going to be muting that, but we can see them here with the GAT. They're about to be laying it down. We can also see them with the ATV.
Big Fish out of water said, the enforcers took out the heli just to be on the news. No, that was helicopter. That wasn't us.
Man, we said there's got to be some news tonight, and so we just shot the helicopter down, and now they're calling it the crash. Hey, watch out, folks. The president of Iran might burn on you for that one. But I gotta say, Matthew, that is a sick burn that they put on the president of Iran. A very sick burn.
Yeah, I've seen some people, all jokes aside, some people were saying, well, even though he was a devil, condolences to him and his family.
Hell no.
It's like, this guy was literally called the Butcher of Tehran. This guy was a devil. And even though he seemed a little bit mundane in his current role, he was calling for death to the entire state of Israel. This guy was not an advocate for peace. And he's also supporting Russia's war against Ukraine. So this guy was a terrible devil. So no condolences on my part whatsoever. Like, the guy, it's good riddance, really.
Yeah, I don't really have any sympathy for the guy. He was a sick guy leading a sick regime of despotism, and not only that, supporting terrorist regimes, terrorist forces throughout the region of the Middle East. I'm not a big fan of the guy. I'm not going to pretend like we're even going to give the guy any condolences or sympathy. He was a sick, evil guy, and he ended up going out in one of the most stupid and idiotic ways you could imagine, flying in thick fog cover through a mountainous region in a helicopter. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that, my 2 cents on the guy, and we're now going to be moving back into the area of Vovchansk, where we got to see that the Russians are already looting. They have not even taken over the town yet, and they've already pulled in a truck to begin looting the place. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. It's literally like stuff out of comedy. And there goes the van. And that's the end of the clip. But really nice to see. Wonderful to know that they were able to, loot a little bit more, because that's what Russians do. But a lot of other folks weren't that lucky. We got to see a T-72B3 right here that got obliterated near the area of Vovchansk. And we were also able to see another, and let me make sure that we get this right here, another T-72B3 in another area around Vovchansk that had also been obliterated and charred at that point. So very interesting to see that they apparently are not doing too well in the area, and the losses are, of course, mounting. But before we move on from that, a lot of people have been wondering what happened to the president of Iran. Oh, my little Ricey. He's a little roasty now. I think that's what we're going to call him now, President Roasty, because it sounds a little bit like Ricey. But beyond that, a lot of people have been wondering what happened to President Roasty, and a lot of people have been thinking that it may have been incompetence or an accident that led to the crash, and I just don't know how people could even come to that kind of conclusion, considering that the Iranians could wipe the floor against the United States each and every day. I mean, we're a weak country these days, and Iran could just wipe the floor. We can't touch him. And some people are saying that it was possibly an assassination, which is ridiculous, because we all know that the leader of Iran is invincible and is legendary. And not only that, some people are saying that there's just not enough info yet. And some other people are saying that they're unsure. But I don't know how y'all can be unsure, considering that this is the president to the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah. How in the world can y'all sit there and say that you're unsure? It simply is. It's just not enough info yet. But Matthew, what are people saying about that crash, and what are you thinking about it?
So it looks like about 67% of the people, the most popular option here, says it was incompetence and or the accident. And it looks like 14% said it was an assassination, and another 14% said, not enough info yet and really can't say. And based on the images here, it looks like, based on the weather and the really heavy and dense fog, and also that mountain being at such a sharp angle, I would bet probably 95% odds, in my opinion, that they simply ran right into the side of that mountain and were not paying attention, or were just incompetent and ran straight into it. And somehow the other 2 helicopters managed to avoid that. I don't know how they did it, or maybe there was some type of fishy stuff going on with the communication there. But for some reason, they went right into the side of the mountain. And I really would have some doubts if it's an assassination. It looks more like incompetence. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, it was 100% incompetence. Some people would love to believe that everything in the world is always a part of a design or a grand plan. This was no part of a design or a grand plan. When you fly a helicopter through mountains and you can't see hardly in front of the helicopter at all, and you're going full speed, you are begging to die. It is a death sentence, practically. And so it was complete incompetence that led to the death of the president and the foreign minister in this crash. There is no other explanation. It couldn't even be an assassination, because the instance that it happened under, it is clearly some kind of an accident that happened due to incompetence. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And I'm sure that it will come out that they'll blame Israel or something like that. Because just imagine the incompetence of a country to put their president into pretty much a flying death machine at that point, flying them straight into the side of a mountain because they can't even see the mountain for that matter, and they don't even know where they really are. That would lead me to believe that the Iranians are not going to admit that it was an accident, but it clearly was, and it was just sheer incompetence that would lead to something like this happening. But with that, it is time for us to move on out of that and quickly on into something that we have to do. We must do this because this fundraiser has done unbelievable. We've reached $3.9 thousand on the fundraiser, and it is crazy to see that we've been able to fundraise that much in such a small amount of time for Nova Ukraine, which is an amazing nonprofit doing unbelievable things inside of Ukraine. And a lot of people have made this possible. And I got to thank every single one of y'all, no matter how big y'all's donation to the fundraiser was, whether it was $1, whether it was $500. I got to thank each and every one of y'all in between greatly. We can't call all of y'all off on air because that would take too much time. And we want to make sure to continue to give y'all the news. But we still massively appreciate each and every one of y'all and y'all's massive hearts and the massive amount of generosity that y'all had for Ukraine in supporting this fundraiser tonight. And so, Matthew, can you call off those top donors really quickly that put in donations above $50?
All right, so our biggest donation of the night thus far is going to go to Ed Olson, who threw in a $500 donation, the biggest one. And huge shout out to Ed for that generosity. And also, huge shout out to Murray Peacock as well as James Hughes for each putting in a $200 donation, also extremely generous. And then we have a $100 from some guy called The Enforcer, as well as Al Rose, BC Skyman, Tom S., and Bex Chitwood. And then we have several $50 donations, the first being from Axel K., and then we have a $50 from Snow White, Vic Vazio, as well as Matt Shear, Plant Lady, Kilo, as well as Tina, Andy L., Mike Smith, Alaskan, also Cliff H., let's see, Crazy Loca, Herbert Lita, as well as Boulder Boy, and also Gene Kustra. And once again, huge shout out to everyone because we're now almost up to $4,000 raised, which is about $1,000 or so above goal for Nova for Ukraine. So a tremendous charity and also a tremendous generosity tonight for that charity. So Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, massive shout out to every single one of y'all who supported this fundraiser tonight, both the folks we did call out and the folks we can't call out. Y'all are amazing folks, and I cannot thank y'all enough for helping out this nonprofit and helping out this fundraiser, because all the support ends up going to Ukraine and to Nova Ukraine and helping them out and doing what they do. If it wasn't for y'all, it wouldn't be possible for Ukraine to continue on their war effort, and it wouldn't be possible for them to start focusing a lot of their time, effort, and attention over into what is going on at the front. It is massively appreciative, and I got to thank you so much once again for all of y'all not only helping out that fundraiser but also wanting to help out Ukraine and keep the war effort going. And so with that, thank you all so much once again for doing this tonight. And of course, the fundraiser is not over. Y'all can continue to support it if y'all wish. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into a couple of questions before we move back into the Ukraine war news.
All right, so first up for the night, I just saw a comment from Jay Bagwell, and he pointed out something very interesting that I had not seen prior to right now. Jay said, to add to the craziness today, the King of Saudi Arabia was just hospitalized for serious pneumonia, and he's 88 years old. So that is potentially another major problem that could break out in the Middle East to add to the instability, which is now caused by the death of the Iranian president. So that could go off as well. So a lot of stuff happening at once in the Middle East, and also very bad timing for everyone there. But Enforcer, what say you?
And it does sound like really, really bad timing. Luckily, though, with the death of the Saudi king, it won't really matter that much, at least for the governance of Saudi Arabia, because the reins have already been given over to the crown prince of Saudi Arabia for quite some time, and he's really been the head of the country and running it, while the king of Saudi Arabia has kind of sat in the back due to old age and kind of failing health. So if he dies, it's kind of expected at this point. It won't really have much of an impact on Saudi Arabia, but that will be a major bit of news, considering that the king of Saudi Arabia will officially be dead by that point. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you for sharing that, J Bagwell, because that is huge news right there. And also, with that, huge shout out to Butchie777 and Richard Hawkins. Butchie777 put in a 50, and let's see here, and Richard Hawkins threw in 100. And we got to give a massive shout out to each and to the Butches for helping out this fundraiser. That is incredible right there. But, Matthew, what are those questions that we got?
All right, so we've got a question this time from Bootleg, who says, Enforcer, do you think Israel will take advantage of the death of the Iranian president?
I don't really think they would at the moment, considering that Israel had a somewhat limited response to what happened with Iran attacking them. I'm assuming that the Israelis are most likely just going to sit by and watch what happens, or if anything, the Mossad is going to try and sway the turn of events that will be unfolding inside of Iran after the death of the president. So, if they're involved in any way, it's going to be a very mild way. They're really just going to be supporting or condemning one faction or another. While Hal Rose is supporting the faction in Ukraine by throwing in a $333 donation. Damn! Impressive. And we just got up to $4,600 on the fundraiser.
That's freaking crazy.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Crazy stuff right there. And I love to see it. But with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well, and thank you once again for asking a good question, because I think they might get involved, but it will most likely be in a very indirect way, just trying to sway what faction ends up winning in Iran and ending up taking control. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our last question of this segment is going to go to Andrew, who says, what do you think the death of Raisi does for Putin in the short to medium term?
The death of Raisi probably will not do a lot for Putin in the short to immediate term, because the Iranian government will probably still be looking for money, whoever's in charge, and so I'm sure they'll be fine selling weapons to the Russian Federation, such as the Shahed or any other kinds of weapon systems. So going off of that, I don't think it'll change much for Putin, at least in the short term, but in the long term, things may drastically change. But right now, we don't even really know the lay of the land. We don't know if a coup will be attempted. We don't know what the faction is or what their beliefs and ideologies are. So for now, we don't really have enough knowledge to really say clearly whether anything is going to change at all. But I would assume that it probably will, considering how scared the Iranian government already looks, that there may be an attempt to overthrow the Iranian government. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And with that, it's now time for us to move on into the location unknowns inside of Ukraine, starting off with some pictures of a Challenger 2 that was in training from the 199th Training Center. Very nice to see it. Very good to know that it's here, and it's one of the 13 Challenger 2s that is inside of Ukraine. Moving on from that, we also got to see that some Ukrainian soldiers in the Korn group was able to find a fox cub, and this thing appears to be quite confused already. Oh, look at it.
Man, that fox, I'm telling you what, it looks scared. Man, that fox is acting like a POW.
Man, it said, I'm not telling you nothing, you're Ukrainian bitch. It's just like... Now they're going to let it go. Dude, they dropped that thing like a loaf of bread. Look at this. They just rolled it. And there it goes on into the grass. And now you see them walking away, but cute little fox. I liked it. I thought it was cute. And so with that, we're now moving on to our next bit, where we also got to see that the Russians... I got to show this. Hang on. The rest of the clip does not matter. It's just this one here. See that vehicle? You see that vehicle right there? One second. Let me go pull this up. One second. Hang on, Aaron. Hang tight. The Gaz 69. Nice. This is the vehicle that was destroyed. And I just want to put this out there for y'all. The time that this thing entered production, Stalin was alive. Like, he was alive and in control of the Soviet Union when this thing first entered production in 1953. That's how old this vehicle is, and that is how desperate the Russians are for usable vehicles, is that they used one of these and it got blown up. We don't know when it got blown up, but it was destroyed, and it's clearly showing that the Russians are so desperate even for utility vehicles that they're now pulling out 1950s vehicle stocks to use on the front lines. That is how desperate it's gotten. But we can see the Ukrainian here moving on down the tree line and showing a destroyed BMP-2 as well.
All right, Enforcer, I got some more breaking news about the Iran situation, by the way.
Oh?
I'm hearing that apparently all of the reports we've been getting from the rescue workers confirming there's no signs of life are based on drone footage. The actual rescue workers have not yet arrived on the actual scene of the crash itself, but obviously the guys are dead. It's pretty clear at this point. And also there is some more, much clearer drone footage coming out of the actual crash. And based on what we're seeing here, I would not be shocked if they died on impact, because that looks like it was a very hard hit.
And a huge shout out to the Bazinga Axe who threw in a $200 donation.
Let's go!
Let's get it, baby! And also, we're going to be going to Twitter really quickly. We're actually going to be circling back to the news of the Iranian president's death, and we're going to be looking at that a little bit more. And so, let me move this up here on screen. And here we go. Ooh, yeah, they're yeah. I don't think they need to go to the crash site to know that everyone is dead. Yeah. No one made it out of that one. I mean, the fuselage literally disintegrated. The only thing that exists is the tail section. So they're all dead.
دقیقاً محل سقوط این بالگردیه که متاسفانه اینجا سقوط کرده. دقیقاً این محل سقوطشه. این خود بالگرده که سقوط کرده و الان دارین اینجا تصاویرشو میبینین. این تصاویر توسط پهپادهای جمعیت هلال احمر که این
I can literally imagine the air disasters animation on this thing right here. Just fly right into the mountain and boosh, big explosion.
Dude, they're going to go, the NTSB conducted a thorough investigation of the crash and found the black boxes. And you're going to hear, Samir, you're breaking the helicopter, Samir. Shut up. Boosh. That's what you're going to hear, man. It's like, this is a disaster, an unmitigated disaster of incompetence, a tragedy, a calamity of incompetence that happened here. The helicopter hit so hard, it turned head over, and the tail section is close to where the nose of the helicopter would be. But you can see the debris is so finely minced that this thing hit at such a high speed, it literally disintegrated into small pieces when it hit the mountain. They're all dead. That is a fatality, Mortal Kombat style, insta-death. Permadeath. You're not coming back from this one. You're burning in hell already early. That's how this thing went. And
Also, how do you like the Iranian cope with this? They keep using the term hard landing to describe this crash. It's like they're pulling out the Russian eternal flight line. You know that line that Flight Bomber always uses to describe the Russian pilots that get killed. They're basically doing the same thing in Iran. They're following the Russian propaganda playbook.
Man, dude, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say the president didn't die. He simply ceased living. They're going to say something like that. They're going to say he didn't die. He didn't die in a crash. He simply decided he was no longer fit for this world, or something like that. It's going to be something stupid, or they're going to try and completely deny that he's even dead and just say, due to his injuries, we've decided to replace him as president. It's going to be something like that, but rip to him, because well, actually, you know what? That was probably so sudden the guy didn't even know what happened. The pilots didn't even probably know what happened. They probably just saw green and then were dead instantly. So, still, very interesting to see, I gotta say. And, it's just sad. It's just so sad. He has ceased being, as well as the foreign minister. Rest in pieces. Oh my God, can you believe that happened while we were on air? Can you believe
it's crazy? And all the big news always breaks right when we're on it. And by the way, not trying to brag or nothing like that. That's never our goal here. Never. I'm just always happy that we're the first to break the story. We were literally the first ones on Twitter as well as on YouTube right here to break that. And then mainstream media was about 15 to 20 minutes behind us. So we were faster than legacy media once again.
So once again, not to brag, but we got the whole story out. Also, we made a video earlier today, which we ended up taking down because everyone acted like we were saying bogus. Everyone was like, what? A helicopter might have crashed. And we're like, well, it did. So, like, it's like there was a report that it's crashed. They're looking for it. They're all dead. I mean, that's how it was. And a huge shout out, by the way, to some special guests that I just saw coming on in. Great to see y'all in here, and welcome on in. Y'all just came in at the actual crux, the climax of this entire stream tonight, because we just got news about 10 minutes ago. It was official that the president of Iran is dead, as well as the foreign minister, in the helicopter crash that you can see here on screen. Absolutely insane, unbelievable to think that something like this has happened, and purely from Iranian incompetence. To quickly lay out the story to all of y'all again, since we're on this, and this probably will be the dominant story of the night here on this channel, the president and the foreign minister of Iran traveled to northwestern Iran by helicopter in a Bell 212 to visit a complex that was working on some sort of a transportation corridor, from what we believe, in between Iran and Azerbaijan. After the meeting, the president and the foreign minister boarded a helicopter in heavy cloud cover and began to travel at high speed at low altitude through a very mountainous region in northwestern Iran. Once they moved through that area, they then ended up running head-on into a mountain, Wile E. Coyote style, or Looney Tunes style. The helicopter immediately disintegrated, killing the president and the foreign minister on impact. A fire then enveloped the crash site, burning whatever remained. And the first time that we saw the helicopter was from a Turkish drone using an infrared camera, due to the request from assistance by Iran from surrounding foreign nations to help them to look for the president, due to the incompetence of the Iranian ground crews that were looking for the president. The Turkish drone finally found it. The Iranians denied that that was the helicopter, because it simply couldn't be on fire and it simply couldn't have really crashed like that. And then the Iranians have now discovered, now that the fog has finally cleared about 12 hours later, that the president of Iran has died instantly and has been dead for about 12 hours at this point, meaning that the Iranian government has had no actual leadership from the president for 12 hours, and the foreign minister is also dead as well, along with everyone else who was on board the helicopter, including the president's entourage and the pilot and co-pilot. So,
and also, by the way, the other people that were on the helicopter that also got killed as well, it was like the enforcer said, the president, Raisi, as well as the foreign minister of Iran, also the governor of eastern Azerbaijan was killed as well, along with Tabriz's Friday prayer, apparently a prayer leader or something like that, Mohammed Ali al-Hashim, if that's how you say it, as well as the pilot, the co-pilot, the crew chief, the head of security, and another bodyguard. So what we're being told is going to happen next is, in the line of succession here, it looks like the first Vice President Mohammed Mokber is going to be the next one up, but he has to be approved first by Iran's supreme leader, which is the Ayatollah. So that has to go through an approval process. I'm not sure if that's a formality or is that something that actually might get held up, but that's the next step in this process.
Oh my God. Man, I don't really know where to go from here with this news, because it is actually a very simple statement. There's not really a lot more for us to add to it. We could tell you all about all of the comedy that went down over the course of the day, as we saw that the Iranian search and rescue teams were getting lost. They were going missing. Apparently, they mistook the smell of burning car fuel, because some car caught on fire in the area, for the smell of burning helicopter fuel, because apparently agents of Iran are supposed to be trained on distinguishing the different smells of different burning fuels. It was an entire clown show that's been happening the entire day, and we've been trying to keep on top of it as best as we possibly can. We made a video about this way earlier on in the day. We ended up taking it down because loads of people were coming into our comment section and going, "Oh, come on, it's just a crash, and it's not even a crash that was confirmed. Come on, y'all are trying to be a little bit too preemptive." Like, common sense tells me, and this is something I feel like a lot of people do not have in the modern world now, and they try and act a little bit too smug and too intelligent, like official reports are everything, and usually we act like that on this channel, but sometimes common sense has to prevail. When you hear of a helicopter crash that occurred in a mountainous area with no visibility, it's clear that whatever it collided with at top speed, and most likely into a flat face of a mountain, meaning that everyone died instantly. I mean, it wasn't really that hard to get that out of this crash. I just wish that people used a little bit more common sense when listening at news and also trying to make news, because we already knew at least 10 hours ago that the guy was dead. I mean, it was very clear. I don't know about you, Matthew. I mean, like, I don't know about you. I know about you because we were talking about it. You and me both knew the guy was dead 10 hours ago. It was without a doubt.
Basically. because once I saw all the confusion happening with the actual rescue process, that was a little bit odd to me. I'm not trying to start conspiracy theories here. I want to make that clear, but I would not be surprised if they knew he was dead long before the announcement just came out. And they may have been simply stalling for time to figure out how to break this to the public. But once again, that's just my speculation on the issue. But yeah, it didn't take too much like hard thinking to know the guy was dead earlier. That was pretty much a foregone conclusion.
It doesn't take a damn lick of intelligence at all to know that they were going to be dead. Like think about it. Kobe crashed in very similar circumstances. And if y'all ever saw, because the state coroner's office, I believe, in the state of California, issued an autopsy report on Kobe after he died. Even in that crash, where the helicopter actually kind of like skidded on the mountain, but it ended up disintegrating anyways. It didn't ram directly into it, though. Kobe's body was so mangled. His head was, well, no, let me think. I'm not sure if his head was gone. His right arm was gone. Both of his legs were gone. One of them only existed down to about the knee, and I believe it was his left leg. The other left arm was also almost completely ripped off, and I think like a tether was hanging on or something like that. It was horrendous. I mean, the guy had literally been shredded in the crash, died instantly. And then everyone sat there and heard about this crash, which occurred under far more strenuous circumstances. And then people want to go, well, maybe he's alive. It's like, no, he's not. Like, and also the guy who came out, the deputy to the president who came out earlier, Matthew, and said that there was some kind of communications. Well, here we go. Some kind of communications with people from the crash. He was just flat out lying. Like,
oh yeah,
completely.
Yeah, man. The Iranians couldn't even keep their story straight. Like the executive deputy, came out and made this statement saying he had heard from the dead, which was false. And then everyone else was saying, we found some wreckage over here. Oh, nope, we didn't find wreckage. Then they said, oh, we sent out a drone. We saw something. Nope, we didn't see something. They literally couldn't even keep the story straight. And when stuff doesn't make sense like that, there's some funny business going on in the background with that. And Iran is a proven liar. Like their entire government lies like crazy. So this entire process was just weird all the way around. So who knows? We'll have to wait a couple of days to get more information, because I'm sure there'll be more stuff that ends up coming to light about the entire process.
Man, dude, remember, oh my lord, remember, dude, when they were like, okay, we've got everyone in the area, we've got our top guys, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, they're going to go out there and they're going to find him, they're going to save him, they're like our best. And then literally like 20 minutes later, they're like, we have lost 2 search and rescue groups. It's like, how the hell? Like, it's like they're not even away from the cars. They just walked away from the cars and they're already lost. It's like, you got to be kidding me here. Like the whole thing was a joke. This is like the 1906 Olympics where they like fed people arsenic on accident and they ended up making them run like a 25-mile marathon. It's that kind of stupidity here. And also, I just want to put this out there. This kind of stupidity from beginning to end in the search and rescue effort, people want us to believe that a country that is this incompetent to put their president in this kind of a situation and also to conduct the search and rescue like this, that the United States is supposed to be scared of this country? Like, are people serious? No. Like people act, but you know the people I'm talking about, Matthew, out there, they make it sound like anyone who hates America could destroy America, including Cuba. Like, it's like, you got to be out of your mind to think that these people would pose a threat to America. I mean, they got the freaking Fedayeen out here pretty much looking for whoever the hell was in the plane, including the president and the foreign minister. You got those guys out there. You may as well just have, hell, anyone. You may as well just send a whole bunch of villagers out there into the Iranian forest and said, go find this guy. And that's how it went. Like,
the entire story was so messed up, like along the way, like how the Iranians were trying to paint the timeline, like backing off, saying things and backing off the statements again. When they said, yeah, we sent some troops into the forest or whatever to go look for them. Oh, they got lost. And everybody's like, oh my God, they got lost. Like, people were like speculating the Mossad had picked those people off like in the woods. They were like, what the hell? How do you get lost that quick? Like going right down into the woods. It's like, don't they know their own like landscape of their country? And then later on, they backed off and said, well, actually, they didn't get lost. They're totally fine. It's like, well, how the hell do you make a mistake like that? Like, how's that work?
Dude, they sat there and went, okay, everyone, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do A, B, and C. Okay, go. And then they went, oh shit, we forgot to even contact them. Quick, bring in the cell phone boosters. And then they went there missing. Dude, it's like, everything they did was like one of the things, okay, so we have a lot of first responders who watch this show. I just want to put that out there. We got loads of people who are firefighters, ambulance, police, an endless amount of them that watch this show. And all of y'all know that in any kind of a disaster event, it's so important to have communication from the onset. Like, from the complete beginning, communication is the key. Like, you've got to figure out what's the chain of command communication-wise, who's going to have the radios, what teams are what, who's going to be the leaders of those teams. Iran figured out the whole chain of command and who's going to be in what teams and sent them on their way. And then as an afterthought, they went, oh, wait a minute, we got to talk to these people. Like, let's bring in the cell phone boosters because these guys aren't even equipped with radios. Like, so, oh God. And then people say that these are going to be the masterminds that end up winning the Middle East. Like, oh my God, man, you can't make up this kind of comedy. Like, you just can't. You would have to try hard as hell to be this stupid. And yet they don't even put any effort into it. It's a breeze for these people. Like, someone needs to conduct a coup d'etat in Iran just because this is so embarrassing and stupid. This government in Iran just cannot exist by next week. Like, this is such an embarrassment for them. The Iranian government should not exist by next week. The worst I've ever seen. Truly the worst. I've never even, like, the Russians aren't even this incompetent, and they are setting the bar low. Like, the Russians are so low on the bar, they'll run over their own people with a tank that are literally standing right in front of the driver. But even that doesn't get to the point of this. This is something you will never see again in your lives, folks. Like, I'm not even kidding. IMV4 Cancy just said, did the enforcer just facepalm? I don't know if you can even hear that through the microphone. I don't even know how you did. I was actually facepalming. You just can't make this stuff up. Like they say, sometimes people say that real life is more interesting than fiction, and I am entirely behind that. I feel like we need to make a long video documentary about this, Matthew, because it would literally be a slapstick comedy with how this whole thing went down, from the helicopter taking off to them finding out he's dead. The whole thing was a slapstick routine.
For sure, it would be. And, once more information comes out about it, I think it's going to get even more confusing and kind of laughable as it goes. And especially if the transfer of power doesn't go smoothly and it turns out to be fireworks instead, that's going to be even a bigger comedy because that could go south pretty quick. Which brings us to an interesting question, which I just put up on the poll right now. It looks like a lot of people are answering that one.
And, okay, so hang on. Let's move on. It may have just gotten up, and there's like about 400-something votes on it. So it is a very preliminary poll. But do you think an Iranian coup would be in Western interest? It's a very simple question. It's really just a yes or no, but we, of course, gave it depends. But what are y'all... you know what? While we answer this, I'm not even going to go to the map. I'm just going to keep this picture of the helicopter crash on stream. It speaks for itself that everyone in this crash is dead just by looking at that picture. So we're just going to leave that up there like that and just leave it there. Do y'all think that a coup is going to happen? And do you think it would be in Western interest that a coup happened in Iran? What are y'all already thinking right now? And also, what are you thinking about this, Matthew?
All right, so helicopter. I just had to get that out real quick. It was in my system. Helicopter. And the Iranian helicopters, they fit that description. They look like clown helicopters, basically. But the question here on the poll says, do you think an Iranian coup would be in Western interest? It looks like 49% said yes, the USA wants a coup in Iran. It looks like 40% said it really depends on who's doing it. And 11% said no, the USA does not want a coup. And to be perfectly honest with you all, I'm not really sure who are the potential alternative options here that might be vying for power that could possibly launch a coup. I'm really not that familiar with the Iranian government to be able to speculate on that. But I would definitely say it depends on who's doing it, because there's always a possibility the government could get worse, believe it or not. There's always a possibility for things to go worse before they get better. So it really depends on who's doing it. And if it's not the right person, I would say the USA probably doesn't want that to happen, but we'll have to see on this one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm saying that yes, America would want a coup. Why wouldn't we want a coup? I mean, the coup that happened, I believe, in 1979 that led to the collapse of the Shah's government and the creation of the Islamic State in Iran was something that the United States wasn't a fan of back then. We already tried very early on to attempt a coup against the new Islamic Republic and overthrow it, and that ended up failing. And so going off of that, I would entirely believe that we would want this government overthrown even now, and considering that it's certainly an anti-American country and supporting Russian and Chinese interests, both non-American or non-Western aligned countries, we certainly want a coup to happen in Iran. And I have a feeling that the CIA, if they find the ability, they are going to swoop in and start working on a government overthrow or a coup d'etat. And I also believe that the Mossad, as well as MI6, because believe it or not, Britain actually is very anti-Iranian to a level. The French may as well, because actually back in the day, y'all may not know this, the reason why the Shah is in charge in Iran is because we ended up overthrowing the Iranian government in 1943 in the middle of World War II and installing the Shah as the leader of Iran. That's why the country existed in the first place, to be overthrown by the Islamic State. And going off of that, I have a feeling that we're probably still very interested in seeing a government change in Iran, and I think that the public in Iran is also not a big fan of the Iranian government either. It's just simply too oppressive for anyone to really like it, unless if you're a part of the government system and getting some kind of an advantage or a benefit out of it. So, I would say, yes, the West would be very interested in a coup. But with that, we are going to get off of that news again, and we are going to wrap up the rest of the Ukraine war news that we have, because we still have a lot of news to cover in Ukraine, and I want to show y'all the gas that we had in this clip right here, as well as the destroyed BMP-2 that y'all can see. And also, Lou Brown, you were correct. 1953 Project AJAX installed the Shah. I'm sorry, it was not the 1903 overthrow conducted by Britain, the U.S., and the Soviet Union. It was Project AJAX of 1953 under Eisenhower's administration. But moving on from that and into our next bit of news, it's time for us to get back out of Iran and back into Ukraine and to wrap up our location unknowns. Because we also got to see that apparently the Russians have created an armor modification that I'm just going to call the Wall. We can see it right here. It's made up of nothing but Contact 1 ERA tiles. And also, Matthew, I like to see Vadim over here getting a facelift. He looks better this way on the...
Man, why'd they do that?
Dude, that's what I look like when I wake up in the morning. Like, I look like that, man. It's like, it's a tough life. But beyond that, this is the stupidest armor modification I've ever seen. They put it over the engine bay, by the way. This was them building it, and this is the end product right here. How stupid can you be? I mean, it's literally a wall of explosives that they put on this tank. I don't think it's going to protect it too well, but, you know, they'll give it a shot. They'll see. But moving on from that, it's now time for us to move on into the Russian casualty report. And we were able to see right here that the losses were juicy.
Oh my God, man, it's looking hideous again. At 1,200 troops once again. Like, if it's over 1,000 troops, in my opinion, that's a big day. It's looking ugly again. But I will say, only 2 Bobcats, though. That's a shame. I love to have it, though. I'm grateful for the 2, but I'm kind of spoiled, you know. I've gotten used to those 10 Bobcat days, but it's looking pretty juicy out here.
And it is looking juicy. Good googly moogly, that thing is juicy. With 1,210 Russian soldiers wounded and killed. I saw someone earlier in the stream say that this doesn't include the wounded. From what we understand, it does include the wounded, because we were able to back that up a while ago, that this is apparently the wounded and killed figure. So it's just talking about casualties in general, not fatalities. But 1,210 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed in the past 24 hours, along with 35 armored personnel carriers being destroyed, 82 supply trucks, which is a almost record number, being destroyed, 16 main battle tanks, 48 artillery systems.
48 artillery systems?
Dude,
is that a record? Because I've never seen that.
Yeah, check with Miss Disa, because only Miss Disa will have the number. And hopefully we'll be able to get that from Miss Disa here in a second. I think that might actually be a record, Matthew. I'm not entirely sure.
That could be.
But 47 drones were also shot down. That's not close to a record, but it's still a pretty good number. 3 MLRSs, 1 cruise missile, and 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems were destroyed as well. Today was an incredibly good day for Ukrainian defense. It appears that the numbers are maintaining a very high level, record high, actually, compared to the rest of the war on a week-by-week basis. And it is clearly showing us that the Russian Federation is not going to be doing well in the war. And it also appears that the Kharkiv offensive has really put the final nail in the coffin for showing that the Russian Federation just does not have the ability to carry through with offensive actions anymore, because the Kharkiv counteroffensive has produced no real gains for the Russian Federation over the past week. And not only that, it has produced the highest losses seen on any front line in any offensive campaign in the war so far, to really gain absolutely nothing out of it. And so going off of that, I hope that does address the casualty report the best we can, and it's now time for us to move on and down into the frontline news itself. And we are going to be speeding through this a little bit, because it has already been an hour and 45 minutes of nothing but pure news coverage, which is a lot. Usually it's about an hour and 30 to an hour and 40 minutes long, and we're probably going to be going on into 2 hours and 2 hours and 10 minutes of news coverage tonight. But I hope y'all have all been enjoying
Straight
it.
juice though, like it really is straight juice. Like on these nights when we're breaking the news, like it's like an adrenaline rush on these nights. Like these are the nights like you get done with these, and then you go into the next night, and it's like an average news day or something like that, and you feel like stuff is like gone like completely silent, like even with normal news after big ones like this.
Oh man, I got to tell y'all. Speaking of what Matthew's saying, like Matthew's right. Days like these, when the news is actually coming out hot off the press while we're live on air, it is the craziest thing. It is like nothing else. There's no other way to describe what it's like for us, because we get to tell y'all the exciting news as it's happening right now. Like, as we're saying it, it's happened, like, right then. It's not something that we compile over 24 hours and then put it all out to y'all almost as like a summary. It is happening every single moment as we're live, and that is so crazy cool. Like, we've done this 3 times now with Iran. We did it when Israel attacked well, hang on, no. We did it when Iran attacked Israel. We then did it when Israel attacked Iran in return, and now we're doing it with the death of the president of Iran. So really, our best things that we have done live, it's all been about Iran and Israel. It is raw juice. I mean, these kinds of nights you live for, running this kind of a channel, doing this kind of stuff as a job. It is the best thing ever. I hate that it isn't like this every day. Like, you know, like, of course, like, thank God it's not like this every day for the actual people who are being affected by the news sometimes. Well, today, I'm not going to say that. Today gets an exception because a literal devil died today, so that gets a pass. Today was a great day to cover, all metrics considered. But beyond that, it is just... It's just something that I gotta say. It is incredible to be able to cover this kind of stuff, and it's incredible to be able to cover it with all of y'all who are here with us right now, because it is very rare that we get to cover news like this, and it's very rare that we have the kind of folks that we have here with us tonight on air. It's been an incredibly long time, and it's great to know that all of y'all are here, and all of y'all are getting to watch us as we are absolutely hyped and absolutely stoked, because we are just getting the craziest news that the president of Iran is now officially dead as we are on air right now. And so with that, it is time for us to get on out of that reflection on everything, and time for us to move on into the location unknowns and into the area of Kremenna, where we got to see that some Brazilian volunteers were repelling a armed forces of Ukraine. Well, actually, I'm sorry. The Brazilian volunteers of the armed forces of Ukraine are repelling a Russian assault. And so, here's the clip. By the way, this is at the break of dawn in the Kremenna forest, when you see Russian tracers ripping over the heads of the Brazilian volunteers as they continue on the fight, holding their ground as best as they can.
Neves! Abaixa! Vai!
See him now getting ready to fire again. Apparently he had a jam right there, man. Did you see that? He was like, "Hey!" and then you hear a click, and then you hear I was like, "Oh, he had a jam."
Let's see it again.
Oh, right, dang it, right there.
Vai!
Oh, you know, that must
click.
be terrible. Oh my God, dude, I would have actually crapped myself if that had happened.
Vai!
Oh.
Oh man, terrible timing.
Manda!
Ooh.
Damn.
RPG hit direct on the Russians in front of them, and then the video ended. But still, showing some of the fighting happening in the Kremenna forest. There's been no frontline changes in this area. It appears that Ukrainian defensive forces are holding strong, and the front line is not shifting around here, but still showing the fierceness of the battles that are occurring to keep this front line where it is. Moving on down into the area of Bakhmut and into the small village of Minkivka, we were able to see that a Leopard was being outfitted with ER-ATOS. I have to say that I absolutely rap on the Russians for putting ERA tiles on literally everything. I've got to be honest, this is one of those moments where I'm going to have to kind of rap on Ukrainians a little bit for putting ERA tiles on everything, because putting them on a Leopard 1 is kind of pointless, because a Leopard 1 really has no armor in the first place. So the ERA tiles don't really add much, especially against kinetic rounds and even against charge shape charges, or as they would call them, well, really just shape charges. I mean, that's the best way to describe them, really, in just one word. There is really no armor behind the ERA tiles to really make the ERA tiles worthwhile, so they're not really helping out much with armor protection, and it's kind of a useless addition on a Leopard 1. Now, on a Leopard 2, or a Challenger 2, or an Abrams, it's a useful addition because there's enough armor behind the ERA tiles, so where it really does enhance the armor, but when you're talking about putting ERA tiles on something with practically no armor, it's not really doing much against anything. And also, Alpha said, against an RPG, and yeah, kind of, Alpha, you got a point there, but there's still got to be some actual physical kind of armor behind the ERA tiles for them to actually function, because the ERA tiles only act as really a slowing agent. It doesn't completely negate the damage done by an RPG. It's meant to really weaken the impact of the RPG when it hits the main armor. And when you have no main armor on it, something like Leopard 1, it kind of just ends up being pointless. But with that, I hope that does kind of cover that a little well. And moving on from that into the area of Chasiv Yar, we also got to see that United 24 made an interesting documentary today about the Achilles unit, a very interesting unit of drones operating in the area of Chasiv Yar. And so, here is the clip.
We like it here because it's a real death conveyor for Russians.
Oh, man.
Look, we have cluster munitions from the Uragan MLRS. We prayed and we prayed well, and God sent us a whole box. And this is a 7-kilogram fragmentation munition from Tochka U. Again, it was a Christmas present.
We like those kinds of
All
presents.
this will be sent back with our love.
This is Alexei, Master Sergeant of the Achilles Battalion, specializing in assault drones. He is showing us the munition workshop, where technicians turn basically any explosives into a proper projectile for an FPV drone. This room is full of all types of explosives known to man. A big part of it is trophy munitions, and in this video we will try to show the full circle of how Russian munitions are being sent back to the original owner.
They're sending back to the original owner.
This
I like
was
that.
from an American small anti-bunker grenade launcher. Here's the tube. We also deliver it to the bunkers, and it works perfectly. AT-4 was dismantled, all Soviet and American RPG rounds. It's nothing strange for us. We get the munition, read the literature, and then disassemble it. We have no other choice. We have limited resources and cannot throw something around left and right. We have to use everything, including trophy ammunition. Last summer, we took out about 10 tons of ammunition from enemy positions. And by the new year, we sent it back in the opposite direction. Someone joked that it is very environmentally friendly.
At least 5 technicians are working at the same time. Among them is Zhuk. He shows us how to properly prepare a trophy RPG-7 round for an FPV drone. The main point of his manipulations is to make the projectile as light as possible. The rule is simple.
Spackling.
The lighter the shell, the further the drone
They're like,
travels.
you know what will make this bomb more effective? Some spackling.
You know what's crazy is they have the police in here making them. That's what's crazy.
Dude, you're like, hey, Mr. Police Officer, what are you doing? I'm making bombs in a bomb factory. It's like, oh, all right.
With it.
We all used to be civilians. I've got experience in construction, both working and teaching. This job is about handling tools, so it's not that different. The important thing is to be careful, since we're dealing with very dangerous ammo.
After the application of electronics, which we won't talk much about, the shells are packed and sent directly to combat units. But the
Dude, they
project
pack it with bubble wrap and everything.
So before going to the front line, we want to visit one more location. This is one of the workshops of the Achilles Battalion, where the engineers are assembling FPV drones for the warzone deployment. Currently, this workshop is preparing around drones per day, but they only aim for more.
Why do you have to cuss about it?
Oh, man, why'd they bleep that out if they're going to add a line in the video?
Man, I was boop on my boop It's like, dude, it's like you completely lose the context with the bleeps. It's like, don't do that.
My call sign's Dev, real name Danilo, and I run this FPV workshop. We get the FPV drones ready-made from the manufacturers. The guys then flash them with our custom settings and set up the controls. Every drone gets tested thoroughly. Transmitter controls video, the whole works. After that, they're taken to the training grounds and flown for 5 kilometers each. Before they're handed over to the combat team, we want to test them as much as possible. This way, we weed out about 10 to 20% of each batch. Those drones either get sent back to the manufacturer or fixed up here. We buy the parts, and the guys resolder and replace what's needed in order to get them back into the air.
We've seen many units that operate FPVs, but here in this workshop I realized it's a full-grown enterprise. The management would probably match some IT startup company. The processes are being standardized, and because the sphere is so new and evolving, it's challenging. But such an approach seems to have advantages. Yuri, the battalion commander, shares some simple math with us.
We've calculated that the battalion is currently over half-staffed. For the state and Ukraine, our total monthly cost, including ammunition, is around $3 million.
Dang!
Once fully staffed, maintaining the unit will cost around $6 to $7 million per month.
You see, really quickly, let me throw this out there. It's $6 to $7 million per month to operate the Achilles battalion. It's a single battalion, and right now it's half-staffed with only about probably 400 soldiers inside the unit. Once it has about 800 to 1,000, which will be about the size of a battalion, it's going to cost $6 to $7 million per month to run this unit. And that's why we always put it out there that as far as drone support goes for Ukraine, of course, all support is better than no support. We do want to make that very clear. But it really takes the momentous effort of national governments with unlimited amounts of funds to be able to try and support military units like these, because private citizens, really in reality, probably across the entire internet right now, there's maybe about $1 million a month that is being raised for drones. And just for the Achilles battalion to run, which is one battalion of thousands that are currently in this war that use drones, it's going to cost about $6 to $7 million a month just to keep them running with their drones alone. So you can kind of get the idea of the monumental scale of money that is needed to try and keep the Ukrainian armed forces running. But with that,
this includes weapons and everything else needed for combat missions. I'll send you the April report, and you'll see that we destroyed around $100 million worth of enemy equipment that month alone. Sometimes, and quite often when we're low on ammunition, we play a decisive role in battles, repelling enemy attacks and advancing our forces.
As the night falls, we head to the front line. Achilles units stand around the Bakhmut area, where a powerful Russian offensive towards Chasiv Yar has been in progress since late February 2024.
We're headed to the positions where our guys working every night, launching attacks on the enemy. These technologies, these strike systems, are a real nightmare for the enemy. I always picture it like a bear trying to force its way in, while a swarm of bees attacks it, keeping it constantly distracted.
It's a 6x3 dugout with 4 men. Arrival of the 2 of us makes the room pretty cramped. Nevertheless, the guys are welcoming. Before the big war, they were just a group of friends interested in drone racing. And here they are, a dream of every teenager, with a hobby turned into full-time job.
We like it here because it's a real death conveyor for Russians. It's the most efficient unit we have ever seen.
The drones they are operating are equipped with thermal vision cameras, so they fly at night, destroying logistics, armored vehicles and manpower. Now they are on a free hunt mission. I'm shocked when I'm told that with some special tricks these guys are able to fly as far as 20-25 kilometers, which can compete with some of the artillery systems' range.
Check out that dugout. There's a person. Nah, that's not our client. Our drone is expensive, so we have to hit something expensive.
The person who's responsible for shells and applying them to the drones is Ivan, the group engineer. He takes us to show the ammunition storage.
These are little gifts for the naked emperor.
The naked one.
Naked? Whoa. Whoa, hey, listen, this might be war, but I draw the line at naked. What the frick? Like, I tell you, what the hell? Like, anyways.
They shouldn't get their hopes up that we're running out. We're getting more in. New types are being developed. So we're all set.
And here we are in a small hall, sitting on the boxes full of explosives. This is where the life cycle of a Russian munition ends, and Ivan is the person who sets them off on their last journey. With this video, we wanted to show how much effort goes into sending one trophy shell back, and what kind of tricks Ukrainian soldiers have to invent to deal with the Russian army while lacking ammunition.
Dear viewers, we made it out safe, but the troops will remain at positions, and those units are quite efficient. So if you like what they are doing, I encourage you to support Achilles Battalion by following the QR code on the screen or in the description of the video. Thank you.
And that's the
And Enforcer, real quick, we got some breaking news. I wanted to wait till the video was over, not to mess the whole story up. But we are getting images which we cannot show on stream. And by the way, Enforcer, do not go to the likes tab on our Twitter page. I put it over there so that way there's no accidental showing it on stream. But we've gotten video or photo evidence that it looks like the Iranian foreign minister is in the wreckage. And I'm going to keep it as PG as possible. It says YouTube. But it looks like he died as a result of blunt force trauma. And he's intact. I'm going to leave it at that, though, but he's in the wreckage.
While Matthew may be scared to anger the YouTube censors, I will not. It's just because I want to make sure that we make this quite clear. It appears that the body is intact, but it appears that the head has suffered a serious blow. It appears that it may have caved inwards, which is clearly showing that the foreign minister is dead on the scene. Oddly enough, he does not appear to have suffered any burn damages. It appears that his body is largely intact, and his clothes are as well, which is actually quite bizarre. I'll be entirely honest, because we're looking at the wreckage around him, which does show, and I'm seeing this quite correct, that the crash, the helicopter completely disintegrated, but it appears that his body is intact, which is, and also his clothes don't even appear to be ripped, which is a little odd.
It seems like he might have been ejected from the helicopter, because obviously when one crashes like that, you think it would go up in a big ball of fire. So the fact he appears not to be burned, maybe he was thrown out, maybe it was in like a tailspin or something, if that's even possible. I don't know if you can get slung out of a helicopter unless like the door was open or something, but it's weird. Like the whole photo is kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, dang, I wish we could show this on stream to show y'all, but we can't because of YouTube's guidelines and policies, and you know we have to respect those. But I mean, it's really, really bizarre looking photo, and I don't really know what to make of it, because it really goes against what you would believe. I mean, we did see from the Turkish drone that the helicopter had clearly caught on fire and had been burning for quite some time, and there is no burn damage at all, and it's also incredibly weird. The only thing that appears to have suffered a direct injury appears to be the back of his head. And that is also incredibly weird as well. I don't know what would have caused that. Maybe the back of his head hit a tree when he was ejected from the helicopter. Maybe, I don't know. Well, it couldn't have been a rotor. I have no idea. That is quite a mystery. Maybe we'll be able to get an autopsy report later on in the future as to why that's the case. But that is incredibly odd. If y'all want to see it, y'all can go to our Twitter. The link to our Twitter is in the description below, and you can go to our likes tab and you can see the post there. But I just got to be quite honest, and some people are saying maybe staged photos. No, the debris does line up with the debris we saw in prior pictures and videos, so it is the crash site. But it does look completely authentic. I see a lot of people asking about that. It is entirely authentic. It is the crash site. We can still see a little bit of fog lingering over the area, so it is entirely the crash site. It's just that the remains of the body, well, one of the bodies, is incredibly odd. It's very weird, and we don't really have an explanation as to why that's the case, but hopefully we'll be able to get some information going on in the future. But anyways,
And also, we do have some more footage that's come out, by the way, of the actual crash site, which it's safe to look at our post page, by the way. There's nothing graphic there. It looks like we've gotten some footage of the rescuers making their way up the side of the mountain to get to the helicopter, as well as a 3D image. It looks like maybe Google Earth of the mountain itself, as well as an up-close photo of the tail section with the rescuers around it, if you want to take a look at that.
All right, so thank you so much for getting all this, Matthew. This is a lot of stuff here. So starting off with our first clip at the top, this is also live, by the way, it appears. So we are getting to see...
This is live footage from the Turkish Bayraktar, by the way, that's currently in the area.
Yeah, so we are actually seeing a live view right here of more of the response teams making their way up to the helicopter. And you can already see by the road that they're taking that this is an incredibly steep elevation area on this mountain. And it is insane. I mean, look at that incline, dude. It's like a 30-degree incline on this road.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's like straight up beside a mountain, literally. That was one of the tallest mountains in the area, based on what I see on Google Earth. The elevation was massive. Like, they hit the biggest one in the area.
That may be why they hit it. It may have been so high in elevation that they didn't expect that they were off course and running towards the mountain. They thought that maybe they were about 100 feet above every mountain in the area, and then they hit the only one that was higher than that minimum altitude requirement.
Also, we're getting more news here, this time from OSINT Defender. We're getting reports from Iranian sources that state that beside the body of the Iranian foreign minister, it looks like the other bodies that were recovered at the site are burned and completely unrecognizable. So like I had suspicion, it looks like it did go up in a ball of fire when it hit the mountain. So obviously the foreign minister must have been ejected from it before it hit, or after it hit, and he avoided getting burned because the other guys apparently got burned up to a crisp.
No way, Matthew. I just saw where they said the crash site is. They hardly even left where they were. I mean, because remember we saw the map that they were showing, and it was showing the Iranian-Azerbaijan border in the area around Zongalan, and it was talking about some kind of a project that they had. We would assume that that would have been somewhere along this river because they showed the clip of the river multiple times, maybe in Ibrahim Sami, and they took off from the helicopter and literally flew to the mountain right here near Kunarud, right there, and collided with it. So they only flew maybe 25 miles before they impacted the mountain and died.
Man, that's crazy. It's like, honestly, that is a little bit odd to me. Like, it really is odd. They took off during the middle of a fog incident, a very dense fog incident, and then they, like, literally just took off and then ran straight to the mountain. Kind of weird. And then the two other helicopters made it out, but they didn't.
I mean, that is quite bizarre. And also, here's a picture from a local village here to give you all the idea of the steepness and difficulty of this terrain, to give you all an idea of why it took so long to even find the helicopter, and then after they found it, why it took so long to get to it. The mountains, in some areas, of course, like mountains do, go up almost to the 60-degree angle. And so it's very hard to get anywhere. I mean, this is crazy, man. Like, and also here's the picture of the tail section and some of the responders around it. But it is very clear at the moment, incredibly clear, that the bodies of everyone in the helicopter were burned except for the foreign minister. For some reason, the foreign minister suffered no burns to his body and also didn't suffer any cuts that we could see, as the clothes were also completely intact as well. So a little bit odd. And also, we do know that they'll most likely be using some kind of a dental profile to start trying to identify the remainder of the bodies. Because, I mean, hell, they're unrecognizable. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. But what a crazy day. I mean, what a nuts day. Can't believe this stuff. But moving on from that and down into the area of Avdiivka, and by the way, a huge shout out to Enforcer Matt for sharing with that breaking news with all of us on air and being able to find that. And a huge shout out to him. He's done amazing work with us tonight. But moving on from that, we also got to see the Russians getting hit in the area around Novobabkivka. And here's the clip. We can see right here the intro moving in. We see our Russian right here. And we see him just kind of sitting there. I don't really know what he's doing. He's just kind of chilling. And we now see the FPV drone coming in to stop the chilling and to begin the heating. And we now see the drone making its way on into the doorway. And we see the Russian putting a pot on his head to create a helmet of sorts. We see that right there. Dude, the man put a literal pot over his head right there, and under that pot is his head.
That's crazy.
Will this save him? No. Oh my lord. There's no way. And it still didn't help him out any. But he tried. He tried, but that didn't do much. That's the end of the clip right there, but that Russian, he did not have a good day. Also, this is a new Ukrainian unit emblem. It's a samurai, and it says Ronin. Ronini. Roninu, or something like that, I believe. Which is pretty interesting. Never seen that one before, but still pretty cool. Moving on from that and out of the area of Avdiivka and down into the area of Luhansk, we were able to see that the battery commander was destroyed today in this clip.
Ну, короче, вот такое вот несчастье приключилось. Стояла неподалеку в ангаре мотолыга и прилетела. Как-то так, увы. Погорело все. Вот так вот разворотило. Олег пошел осматривать. Озвучку вы слышите, да? Фоновую.
What can we say is a destroyed battery commander's vehicle? The Russians don't look too happy about it. They look kind of sad. This man looks like he's about to cry. But hey, what can they do? like, what can they really do rather than cry? Moving on from that, we also got to see a Russian SPG get destroyed in the area around Marinka.
Самоходная артиллерийская.
Man, what the hell? I think I was like narrating a cooking video looking at this.
Man, he said, he looked at that SPG and he went, Somorot Vandiski. That's like, dude, why do you sound sad? It's like, but anyways, we could see the Somorot Vandiski being destroyed by the Atom Group. And also, by the way, huge shout out to everyone for getting the fundraiser up to 5.3 thousand. Unbelievable.
Crazy.
Crazy!
I like how during all the craziness, it literally just shot up to 5.3 thousand, which is like tremendously above goal, by the way. Like, seriously, like, after I think about it, huge shout out to everyone for that. Because we kind of haven't been paying much attention to the fundraiser tonight, but the LSA came through anyway, so huge thanks.
The LSA always comes in clutch, and it is amazing to see y'all doing that again and killing it. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. And moving on from that and into our next one in Marinka, we also got to see a drone striking a heavily modified T-62 right here. That is a T-62 main battle tank, by the way. Under that thing, it doesn't matter. It's going to get destroyed anyways, but it looks kind of cool. It looks like a Mad Max vehicle, I'm not going to lie. No.
Oh.
No, I heard that riff, and I was like, oh, God. No, I was like, we're about to lose our show. But we can see it got hit, caught on fire, and was destroyed immediately. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Really nice to see. And with that, we're now moving on down into the area of Novomykhailivka, where we got to see that the 79th obliterated the Russians. Look at this. Oh, we got that trap going on. And the Russians got trapped in this clip, by the way. Is
that a mansion?
I think it's not a mansion anymore, man. It's debris. But yes, I think it was a mansion.
Wow, they've upgraded the mansion. New renovations and demo.
Dude, oh my lord, dude, they hammered it. And one part did collapse, so you can see the roof caving in on the northern side of the building. Nice. You know, Matthew, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of hungry right now, and I just realized that we have no meals. Like we have no meals left until tomorrow. Tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. And with that, that's the end of the clip, but still really nice to see. Great work by the Ukrainian artillerists. Moving on from that, we also got to see more Russian army being destroyed near to Novomikhailivka. And here is the clip. And we're going to be muting that, but we can see the Russian armor down there getting hit as a BTR of some sort. I believe it's a BTR 50, if I'm getting that correct. And we now see one lone Russian walking away. Блядь, сука, блядь, пиздец, иди нахуй, блядь. And we can see the little BTR 50 continuing to roll along. Man, that thing is just cruising. Like a drunk driver on a Sunday. And that's the end of that clip right there. But nice to see. Love to see it. Moving on from that and out of Novomikhailivka and on down into the area of Kherson, we also got to see the 73rd Brigade hitting some Russians as well. And we're going to be muting that because I can already hear the music spooling up. But we can see the Russian forces getting targeted in their dugouts along the area of the Dnipro River. These are mostly around the city of Oleski, from what we know, and also just west of Kazachi Lahri. And we see the Russians making a run from the burning outpost as the Ukrainian drones continue to come in and obliterate these folks. Oh! Man, it hurts. Oh, and it hurts even worse. Real trap shit. Walk with your boys. Damn, son, where'd you find this? Whoa! Like, Zoink Scoop, I think they're out of ammo. Raggy, bomb! But anyways, better yet, Matthew, like, Zoink Scoop, I don't think we have IFR clearance. Raggy, the president's dead! It's just like, dude, man, in Iran, that really do be true. It's like, rest in peace. Raggy, burning. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I tell the president of Iran that we can't fly because of fog cover. He tells me to fly it anyways. Oh, man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. It's like hitting a brick wall. Oh, man, or a mountain. Oh, man, I'm telling you.
What do you do when you're in Iran and you want to go somewhere but you don't want to die? Iran.
Oh. Dude, Iran is iPad's new fitness app. It is Iran, like iPad.
Man, they believe in burning the fat, you know what I mean?
Oh, dude, too soon. Too soon. Dude, I'm telling you, man, I think we're gonna have to helicopter that joke in a little bit later on. Because
helicopter.
Dude, I heard that the pilot screamed Kobe. Like when they were hitting the mountain, they went, Kobe.
Yeah, man, you going hard on Kobe tonight.
I'm just saying, man, like it's the only relatable incident to this. But anyways, with that, it's now time for us to move on out of the area around Kherson and up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here in the 500. Jeez, we're hundreds of days beyond that. The 816th day of the war. And so, without further ado, here is... Oh, it's not long enough, but here is the speech. Speech!
Шановні українці, українки, сьогодні, як щодня, першочергова наша увага усім районам бойових дій, всій лінії захисту. Була доповідь головкома. Генерал Сирський якраз на передовій, безпосередньо у наших бойових бригадах. Результати цих днів усього тижня ми маємо більш міцні позиції на Харківщині. 57-ма бригада, 82-га бригада ДШВ. Дякую вам, воїни. При цьому наші сили достатньо ефективно знищують окупанта на Донецьких напрямках. Зокрема, в районах міста Часів Яр та інших. Власне, окупант не досягає свого завдання розтягнути наші сили та цим послабити Україну на широкому фронті від Харківщини до Донеччини. Я дякую кожному нашому солдату, кожному сержанту, кожному офіцеру, які достатньо сміливо і стійко виконують бойові накази та зберігають наші позиції. Особливо відзначу за бої цими днями 41-шу бригаду. Передусім спецрозділи ГУР, Кракен і Артан та підрозділи Нацгвардії. Саме за часів Яр, за знищену російську техніку та відбиття штурмів. Дякую вам, хлопці. Також особливо хочу подякувати 225-му окремому штурмовому батальйону. Просто молодці. Друге. Дякую усім нашим підрозділам ДСНС України та Національної поліції, кожному медичному працівнику, усім працівникам ремонтних бригад, які задіяні у ліквідації наслідків російських ударів, жорстокі російські обстріли та ракетні удари керованими авіабомбами щодня продовжуються. Сумщина, Харківщина, Донеччина, Запоріжжя, Миколаївщина, міста Дніпровщини. Якими б не були складнощі, всюди є належне реагування наших екстрених служб, усіх рятівників життя. Відзначу сьогодні рятувальників Харківщини, які проявили себе в допомозі нашим людям. Андрій Плахонін, Артем Костиря, Максим Томко, Владислав Касьянюк, Андрій Скиба, Станіслав Нещеретний, всі працівники ДСНС в Харківській області. Дякую. Також вдячний Світлані Шовковій, лікарю Вовчанського відділення екстреної медичної допомоги. Дякую також рятувальникам ДСНС України на Сумщині. Євген Костров, Андрій Ольговський, Сергій Ковбаса, Ігор Пономаренко. Дякую за відданість справі. Фельдшерам бригад екстреної допомоги, які працюють на Сумщині та відзначились цими днями і тижнями. Марина Бакун та Олег Єфименко і майстрам ремонтних бригад, які відновлюють нормальність життя після російських обстрілів саме на Сумщині. Олександру Столяренку, Сергію Кислому та усім вашим колегам дякую. Кожній, хто, виконуючи свої професійні обов'язки, допомагає всій нашій державі стояти проти російського терору і захищати життя. Дякую всім, хто б'ється заради нашої держави і хто допомагає іншим пройти цей важкий час. Слава Україні!
And Heroes Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 816 of the war. And of course, that's going to be moving us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. And I gotta say, it has been one hell of a night. We have raised an unbelievable $5,375,000, $5,375 for Nova Ukraine. And that is truly incredible, truly unheard of. I got to thank y'all all once again for supporting that fundraiser. That help, it will massively improve Nova Ukraine's abilities to help out near the front lines, demining, helping out Ukrainian refugee families living in the United States, helping to ease the strain on the Ukrainian power grid, and a whole bunch of other things. It is truly incredible to know that y'all have hearts of gold and continue to support these fundraisers week after week, continuing to make sure that the folks of Ukraine know that their cause is not yet lost and that the world is still behind them. And so with that, thank you all so much. And Matthew, could you shout out the top donors in between the last segment and this one?
All right. So also, Enforcer, by the way, when we get done with this, by the way, on the homepage of Nova Ukraine, they have the exact amount of money they've delivered to Ukraine, as well as the mules, the aid, and everything else. And that might be helpful to show as well. But anyways, our top donors since the last time are Red Bart, who put in an $85 donation, as well as Steve Watkins at work, who put in a $50, and Destiny put in a $50, along with Skip Tracer 007, who also put in a $50 donation to Nova Ukraine. And huge shout out to everyone once again, even if we did not call your name off. Huge shout out to you for donating to Nova for Ukraine. They're doing tremendous work, and I'm glad that we have come across them because I'm happy to support them. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, Huge shout out to each and every one of y'all once again. I cannot thank y'all enough for being absolute legends of the Ukraine war community, and not only that, legends of this channel. Y'all are helping out in the actual physical way in Ukraine, and that's something that not a lot of people can actually say. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, really quickly, to show y'all a little bit more about Nova Ukraine, they have raised $97 million in aid delivered. Not only that, $66 million has been spent on projects, and $31 million have been spent in-kind donations. 24% of all of this has gone into medical equipment, 20% into people services, 16.7% have been going into other medical items, critical services and repairs makes up 12.4%, food and basic needs makes up 10%, other projects including demining efforts make up 9.6%, and life-saving first aid makes up 7.5%. They have provided 3.1 million meals. They have transported 22.5 thousand tons of aid. 158,844 people and animals have been evacuated by Nova Ukraine. They have delivered $832,639 of medical packs. They have 3,517 volunteers in Ukraine, and they have helped out 5.4 million people through Nova Ukraine. It is an
and also by the way, just this year alone, from January to March 2024, so just this year, they've already spent $6.3 million, that is, plus on goods to Ukraine. And also, I was trying to see here, they said that they have bought since the beginning of this year 98 ultrasound portable machines, 40 portable x-rays, a lot of diagnostic equipment, which is very hard to get, and they're delivering it to Ukraine. So that's what really stood out to me about Nova for Ukraine, is they're actually getting all the equipment that Ukraine needs and just sending it to them. So that's something I really haven't seen from too many other ones. I'm not saying that other ones don't do that, but Nova here is very transparent about what they're doing for Ukraine, and they post reports all the time and even show pictures of them delivering the aid. So a very good charity. I like this one a lot.
And it's unlike other nonprofits. Of course, these are nonprofits that we haven't fundraised for, where they end up supporting training groups, supposedly, and all of the money goes into a training group, which then appears to be somewhat questionable, ends up going defunct once it's exposed that they're somewhat questionable, and then they move it to another group, which is something that we saw in the background doing a lot of research on trying to find a new nonprofit. We found one that kind of set off some alarm bells for us. We're not going to say which one it is because, people are going to get their feelings hurt and everything, so we're not going to say what it is, but we are going to make sure not to fundraise for that one here on this channel. But Nova for Ukraine is a legitimate and incredible nonprofit organization. And not only that, they do a lot in Ukraine of many different kinds of things. And not only that, very helpful things as well. And so with that, I hope that does address this whole Nova Ukraine thing fairly well, because I know it's a new fundraiser and a lot of people are going to be kind of a little leery to support a new fundraiser, but this is one of the best ones that we've been able to find. That's why it's made it into our fundraiser, I guess you could say, rotations, and it's going to probably be a permanent feature of running fundraisers here on this channel. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, it's time for us to get on into some questions. We're probably going to be answering live chats probably for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and first up, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight, we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said, Enforcer, the LSA Signal Corps reports tonight's Morse code is Russia is getting overwhelmed yet again, and long live the LSA, and the LSA will never die.
And that is the sound of money. Y'all got that Morse code message dead on the nail. And I got to say, incredible stuff. I cannot believe that y'all continue to get that right day in and day out. It is the 816th day of war, and y'all still haven't missed a single one. And so with that, thank y'all once again for getting that Morse code message correct. And it's time for us to get on into the next one.
Okay, and also, by the way, I just saw, this makes it official, when Wikipedia updates their page and puts a death date on it, that's when you know the stuff is solid, like it's over with. And they've put Ibrahim's, the president of Iran's death date as today. So it's done and done. So unfortunately, you see it.
I do see it. I do see it. Let me go show this on air. Let me go grab this really quickly. Oh my goodness. They are so quick with it. There it is. 3rd of August of 2021 to the 19th of May 2024 is when he's been in office. What?
Oh dear. He's a goner. Also, by the way, here I just saw that someone said it's official. Iran President Raisi is dead in helicopter crash. I don't know if that means the government has come out and said that yet. I know the state media said it, which is basically the government, but we still haven't heard from the actual regime itself. So waiting to see that. We have?
Yeah, that right there that people are talking about, the official statement, that's the statement from the Iranian government. It just came out literally a minute ago.
Interesting. So we have an official confirmation then.
And so he's dead as a doornail now, and we knew that 10 hours, 12 hours ago at this point. I mean, come on, y'all. I mean, like, I gotta tell y'all, I don't mean to sound like we just believe we're the best, because this is something I believe that everyone should have known from the beginning. When you hear about a helicopter crash in low visibility, no one's going to survive that. The helicopter isn't flying slow. I mean, if they even flew in low visibility like that, you know they had to have been idiotic people. They were flying at high speeds. The highest speeds that the helicopter could travel at 140 miles per hour, most likely, with absolutely no clue of where they really were, and just one navigational error would lead up to them all getting killed. So clearly, when the crash happened in those kinds of conditions, he was already dead. And we knew that earlier on the day. We actually tried, and I think I said this a little bit earlier, we actually tried to make a video earlier today where we pretty much were going to say that he was dead, and everyone blasted it because, oh, come on, it was just a light crash. The Iranian government just said it was a little crash. You can't be making statements like that. And it's like, yes, we can, because, like, if you just have any kind of common sense, I mean, some things are going to be quite obvious, you know, and I know, and I'll be honest with y'all, you know, in the world where people say the Earth is flat, and you know, and that aliens built the pyramids, I know that a lot of people want to go overboard with trying to get confirmation for things, because, you know, people just come up with stupid crap and they always act like it's logical, even though it's the most illogical, stupid stuff you ever heard. But with this, like, with hearing something like that, and just knowing how air disasters like that have gone in the past for helicopters that have flown in low visibility in mountainous areas, which always ends in death, it would be ridiculous to think that anyone would have lived through that. And that's why we tried to make that video earlier and put it out, and then some people didn't like that, so then we took it down. But it's like, you know, I'm not the mainstream news. We're not sitting on our asses waiting for someone to say something that's clearly obvious. If the guy is dead, he's dead. You know, it doesn't take an official statement to know that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. You know, at least according to what we know. But with that, and also, someone said, I bet most of the people who said that weren't even your subs. I don't know. Matthew was the one actually watching that. I was out doing something else when that all went down, because I uploaded the video and then had to leave to go deal with something really urgent. But then Matthew was like, take it out. It's take it out. It's like, it's doing poorly. And Matthew, were people saying a lot of that in the chat, in the comment section?
And saying a lot of what now?
Saying stuff about, oh, come on, it's just a helicopter crash. Because I remember seeing a little bit of that.
Yeah, they were saying that. I saw that in the comments. But really, the main thing, though, is that video topic was already so saturated that it was literally getting no views. It was getting like 10 views like per minute or something like that, which is horrific. I think pretty much we've been beat to the punch when it comes to actually reporting the initial report that the helicopter had gone missing.
And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next question here goes to Fred Zersal, who says, doesn't it seem strange that Iran asked the EU for help to find their leader instead of Russia? And wait a minute, real quick, Fred, that is very weird, by the way. And the EU actually obliged them on that and opened up their satellites to let Iran use it to find their missing president. And also, I saw some EU leadership, including the person that runs the emergency management for the EU, they said they stand in solidarity with Iran. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, has the EU lost their mind or something like that? It's like, Iran is an enemy country. Like, we don't stand in solidarity with them. Like, that was a really bad statement to make.
The reason why they make statements like that is that usually back in the day, even if you hated someone and they were your enemy, if the head of their state died, which the president isn't really the head of the state, it's more the Ayatollah. But if they die, usually it was just courtesy to say that they have your respects and everything. But I think we kind of passed that in the modern day to where not everyone is owed respect. Considering that as a country that runs terrorist organizations around not just the Middle East, but around the world that have attacked European Union countries, it seems kind of stupid to say something like that, given the current environment we're in. And I would completely agree with Matthew on that. But there is a reason why they say something like that. It's really a formality of a sort. But still, this guy, not in particular, he's like the Hitler of the Middle East. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. That would be like giving condolences to Stalin. You know, it's like, oh, poor Stalin, he died. It's like, no, I'm not giving condolences to Stalin. He was a sick bastard. Or Hitler, for that matter. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Mad Machine, who says, how much refinery capacity has Russia lost so far, and when will it go past the point of recovery?
Around 14 to 15% of the refineries have been knocked out at this point, and we believe that it's probably going to get on up into the area around 20% at its highest. And already at this point, the Russian oil industry is under incredibly serious strain, so they kind of are already on the down and out. But I assume if it gets up to 20, they'll probably go into a complete collapse. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Supernova, who says, what will be the next game changer after the F-16s have been in Ukraine?
I don't really think there will be another game changer after the F-16. I think at that point, we've kind of covered the board on everything that we could send that would be a game changer, that all of the game changers we could send will be in Ukraine. So in my opinion, I think the F-16 is kind of the pinnacle of game changers, and it's going to be the last of its kind. And then beyond that, it's really just going to be maintenance support, keeping up artillery munitions figures, missiles, bomb kind of supply numbers, and then not only that, maybe sending in replacement aircraft and equipment for any kind of attrition that has suffered. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Certain Death, who says, should the West first strike Iran's nuclear research facilities with such instability happening in Iran right now?
I'm not really sure. To be quite honest, I think we should wait until the coup actually starts beginning, because right now, if we attack them, that means that someone could try and create a consolidation in Iran against the United States, which could end up actually strengthening the country at this moment. We will want to sit back for a little bit and then let national tensions rise over and the factions begin to fight each other, and then destroy the nuclear research facilities during that moment in time, because by then, Iran is so focused inwards on itself that absolutely nothing would happen in response to an attack like that. So I think we should wait until a coup or a civil war actually starts to break out in Iran, and then attack those nuclear research sites. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Epic Soup Gamer, who says, what is the difference between the president and the supreme leader of Iran?
The president of Iran kind of conducts the day-to-day operations. The supreme leader, it's a really hard thing to explain how the Iranian government works, because the supreme leader doesn't really have a job, and he doesn't really have to conduct Iran's operations on a day-to-day basis. He more so just gets to lean in on and have his will pretty much followed through if he steps into something, is the best way I can explain it. So he's kind of like a benevolent totalitarian dictator, but it's usually the president of Iran that is doing most of the work and actually getting things done in Iran and outside of Iran. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least with how I understand the Iranian government structure to function. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, has there been any indication of foul play regarding the president of Iran's helicopter crash?
Absolutely.
AF Kaplan, the foul play is the incompetent piloting. That's the foul play. That was so foul, it ended up killing them all. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, it was so foul that no one could even understand the kind of foul this was. It was like a waterfowl nearly. It was sheer incompetence that led to this crash. The Iranian government is also on that level as well. You got to be just an idiot to kill your president. I mean, like, how in the hell do you just do that so poorly that you can get your president killed? How many presidents in the United States have been killed by accident by the government?
Well,
none. Well, none. Like think about it. Well, what are you about to say?
Oh, nothing. I think everybody knows what I'm thinking about.
Hell, I don't know. Why don't you inform us, man? You inform the class what you're laughing about.
You remember when there was a guy sort of like driving in a car that was open top through Texas? You remember that fella?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
was it accident? Nobody ever may know. Who knows?
Well, yeah, that's a good point, I suppose. That's a good point. But then again, that wasn't really an accident, though, because like the accident I'm talking about is like if JFK was in that car, okay, and then they ended up careening that thing off the street and into the side of the bridge, and then he got killed by the crash. That's the kind of incompetence I'm talking about. JFK getting obliterated by Lee Harvey Oswald is a little different. I think that's a different kind of incompetence that leads to an assassination being successful. But nevertheless,
I've heard Lee Harvey Oswald. I heard his name could be first name G, last name Man.
Oh, get the hell out of here, man. Man, ain't nobody going to know nothing about this. But then again, the way he got whacked afterwards was a little bit interesting, shot in the stomach on the way. Like, you never know. You like, with that one, it is actually like, it's actually a theory I'd entertain a little bit. But you never know. You never know. But anyways, moving on from that, this kind of incompetence, though, like running Air Force One into the ground and killing everyone on board, that would not happen in America ever. Period. Hell, the Russians wouldn't even do something like this. No one would do anything like this. The only place in the world you see this kind of stuff, Iran. Like, literally, only Iran can be this incompetent. And that's really what I'm trying to get across right here, is the kind of incompetence that would lead you to accidentally kill your own president. That is next level right there. So yes, this is entirely an accident and had no foul play involved from what we know. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to O-Tubes, who says, has Ukraine got all that was promised to them yet from the U.S. and the other countries?
They haven't gotten all of it. It's always in a process of kind of just flowing into Ukraine. So the answer to that is you never really get all of it at a single time, but it's always flowing in at a pretty decent rate nowadays. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Sphere, who says, I'm of the opinion that the United States support is crucial in Ukraine winning the war. And would y'all say the same as well? And absolutely, without the U.S. support, perfectly honest, Ukraine would fall very quickly without the Western support. Ukraine said that themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. The U.S. has the equipment to spare, but they do need our help very desperately. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that U.S. support is incredibly important. We saw that Ukraine admitted that as well when they were not getting U.S. support. They said without American support, Ukraine will lose the war. And so I would say that American support may in fact be the linchpin of the entire conflict. While Europe supports a great deal, and it's of course greatly appreciated, American support is what really puts them over the top and allows them to be able to have a great chance of winning this war. And so with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is O-Tubes, who said, what will it mean for the world if Iran president is dead? And now he's dead.
Oh, he's dead. He's dead now. We don't know yet at the moment because it's so early on. We don't know what will happen. There's a couple of things that may happen. There may be a peaceful transfer of power, and things may just continue on as normal. There may be an attempted coup d'etat, which could turn into two ways. The coup d'etat is successful, and the entire Iranian government, including the Ayatollah and the supreme leader, could be gone, or it could devolve into a civil war. And then we see that Iran is embroiled in a conflict that will probably destroy the remainder of Iran's economy, whatever there is of it, and will most likely also throw the Iranians out of the general world picture, even in the region. And we don't really know how that'll go. But beyond that, I think that's what this will mean. I don't really think anything else is going to happen that will affect us on a personal level around the world. If anything, it'll be contained in the Middle East. But I feel like those are all of the possible scenarios that could happen. We don't know which one is going to happen because it's just so early and too close to call. But we will be waiting to see if there's any additional info and any additional news. And then once we start to see a little bit of a picture unfolding, then we'll get a really good idea of what things will be looking like going forward. But we kind of have to have a little bit of a foundation to work off of here. And sadly, at the moment, we don't have one yet. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for being here with us tonight as we covered this historic news of the death of the Iranian president. If y'all did enjoy, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And also, if you want, you can even hit that like button a second time, because it helps us out greatly. And we've already hit 3,000 likes. And not only that, a huge shout out to everyone who raised $5,395 on the fundraiser. A truly incredible amount. And once again, we'll be helping Nova Ukraine massively in the war effort. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe. Slava Ukraini, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die.
Indeed, the Leaf Spring Army will never die. And once again, thank you all for another great stream tonight, and a fantastic fundraiser, by the way. $5,400 raised, which is beyond the goal that we even had set tonight. It's got 13 minutes left on it, and huge shout out to everyone for donating tonight to Nova Ukraine. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava. We'll see you all on Tuesday night for the live stream once again, and also tomorrow for the short war summary. There's going to be a lot of news to cover tomorrow, I'm sure, and we'll see you then. And with that, good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що